Hey everyone, All Black Everything Roundtable. Here again for the second time. Well, hopefully this time will stick. We have a great group of guys here. We have A for Andre. Hey, A for Andre. All right. We have Pyro Tyrant. What's up? All right, we have Shark 30, 30 Shark. Hi. We have Chris. Thank you. Lyra, she's back and she's amazing, right? Still amazing. And we have Mr. Fanatic, Wick the Beast, Empress. Thank you all for being here. All right. Topic one. Topic one. But oh, this is like not the one I was looking for. Hold on one second. And yeah. So not. Hold on one second. Got to scroll. There we go. Topic one, inclusive. Not the one I was looking for. Sorry, try to get. Rates of higher education attainment are on the rise for Black Americans, as is the case in other countries. Education is seen as a way towards collective advancement. Or if that's the case, should it be a top priority to encourage Black youth to go into STEM fields, or should we only care that Black kids are making it into college and have the opportunity to expand their minds no matter the path they choose? Credit to our good friend Katarana. All right, we're back into it. So let's just jump into the topic. What do y'all think?
I would say I personally don't. I would never ever want to get into the idea of like freaking forcing them into a specific field because there's some people like college preparedness is one thing that's absolutely important, but like the amount of people that will drop out if they're forced into fields that don't benefit them or that they're not interested in, I think we'll get really really disastrous results. And I think I was one of those people that was constantly being pushed into specific fields in education because I was doing really well like early on, but in reality now like the amount of people that had to like come back and be like, okay, yeah, no, you were right, because I should have been a musician. That's who I am. I'm a musician. That's always been my goal. That's always what I wanted to do. And if I had gone the other route, I don't think I would have been as successful. And I found significantly more success the second I started embracing myself as a musician and pursuing what made sense to me. I think just pushing everyone in a given field. Yes, I think we need more Black kids and stuff in STEM. So pushing those who would be interested, who might whatever, showing them that it's a viable path, I think is good. But like just trying to like pigeonhole them into that is just going to be it'll be crazily disastrous.
Yeah, college should be a passion. Like you should go in for what you're passionate about. That's the only way you're gonna make it through. Because otherwise, like you feel like a huge waste of time if it's just something you went into because either your parents were in it or people just said like you'll make a lot of money. Sometimes that's just not what's
Well,
gonna
that
drive you.
part of like when I actually looked into this topic a little bit, I wrote as like a side note in case we like get on a tangent, and I feel like it's worth mentioning here that like while education is a big elevator, like I don't. It's not that the question frames it like this. I think we should remember that like everyone's trying to hint at like college isn't necessarily for everyone, let alone like pushing people into certain fields. And one thing that can actually benefit like while promoting college alongside it as this elevator is like job training and shit like that, fucking trade schools and shit. Because like while people don't value them on the same level as colleges for some insane reason, right? Like they do have a lot of benefits and they do help people like get entry level jobs and the shit that they're most passionate about. If their passion has happens to be like working more with your hands and building shit, right? Like, but when it comes to pushing people towards like programs and shit within college, yeah, that's just a recipe for a bad idea. Cause like you're good, like sounds good on paper, but what you're gonna have is like these employees of these colleges, like, yo, we have to meet a certain quota. We have to meet a certain quota. Wow, you're interested in this one science a little bit. Boom, you're in a fucking STEM class. And like
Mhm.
that may not necessarily be what this person is looking for, and might turn them off from like even trying anything new because like them classes can get fucking hard. I took one, I dropped out of it. It's fucking hard as shit. Like, it wasn't for me.
Definitely. We definitely need to push for more trade schools because, like, obviously, like, universities and colleges are great, but like, college isn't for everyone because college is hard, and if you don't want to do it or are prepared for it, that it's not only a big waste of time, it's a huge waste of money. So we should definitely push for more like trade schools in general, I think, when it comes to like America, because like they're a lot more cost effective. People who know like, hey, straight out of high school, I want to be a car mechanic. Everybody in my family is a mechanic. I want to be a mechanic. Then they could just go to trade school and save like 2 years and thousands of dollars. So like, and like I'm a big person of like I always encourage people who are graduating from high school to at least like to not just get a job and call it a day, pursue some kind of higher education, whether it be college, university, community college, or trade school. So I think as long as we're giving people more options, there's nowhere to go but up. It also that includes like what courses we allow to high schools and middle schools as well, because I can't remember who said this earlier. I think it was Chris who mentioned how like he's grateful for the opportunity to work in robotics while he was still in high school, I believe. Just something that simple, like many people take that for granted and don't realize how important that is when it comes to like encouraging our youth to go into a field that they desire, especially when it comes to STEM, but really to everything. Like for example, like the very first time I ever coded in my life, I was a junior in college, and it was very, very rough. And I was like, wow, I wish I had learned how to code, because I talked to my friends and they all learned in middle school. But like me coming from a very underprivileged school district, we just never had coding classes, never had engineering classes. And like if we had more courses like that in like middle schools and high schools, even that in and of itself could encourage more like kids to like have that inspiration to go to college, because you know now they're finding something that they can feel more in tune with. And I'm saying this for STEM because oftentimes in STEM they gets left in the dirt because of how expensive it is. But I feel the same way when it comes to like music. Like there are so many schools that don't have enough instruments for all their students to play. And like, hey, that's the world's greatest pianist that could have come out of there, but unfortunately they don't get to play. And likewise with liberal arts and like English degrees. So as I see it, as long as we're creating more opportunities and more options for children to go through, there's nowhere to go up, and it can only mean good things for everyone.
Yeah,
When you
like
sit down
oh,
with parents and students and you address their academic concerns and ambitions, the pattern you find is one of obsession. The parents, looking forward to their own death and being concerned about their child taking care of themselves when they have died, is concerned about the longevity of the career. How long can my child take care of themselves at this job when I am gone? The child is different, looking forward to balling hard. They're just looking forward to making as much money as possible as quickly as they can. So what I favor is a multi-dimensional approach to choosing a college major, whether you are black, white, or any of the wonderful varieties in between. And when I put my mind to this, I could really only find 5 different areas where you should weigh your decision. Chief among them might be pay for you. You might want to ask yourself, this job, does it bring the sort of salary that's going to allow me to have the career and the lifestyle that I want? Do you want a big family? Do you want a small family? This should dictate which career program you take. But pay is not everything. See, you might like the money, but do you like the actual work? The idea of being a nuclear physicist might sound appealing, but do you know what they do on a daily basis? And if so, is that something you want to do yourself? And maybe right now you like living in the Bahamas, but in the future, when you get married and you have children, maybe you want to travel. So another dimension is universality. Can I travel with this? Can I take it any place I want to if I decide to live someplace else? And of course, not to be left out is what I like to call spiritual fulfillment. See, we're all stuck in this existential tapestry. We have to make decisions in the here and now, necessarily with limited information. So your career and the job that you choose, since you have to do it so much, you should be concerned about if it brings any relief to that situation. Do you find any spiritual fulfillment when you are doing this job function? And then, of course, you want to look at growth, right? You can go to bls.gov, and what you'll find, along with the different occupations, is to projected growth for the next 10 years, which is important because the last thing you want to do is spend the next 5 to 10 years working at a PhD, only to find that in 10 years, there's going to be no job waiting for you. So another factor is growth. what are the projections for growth in this field? So just to sum them up real quickly, universality, can I travel with this? Pay, will this give me the salary for the life I anticipate? Personal fulfillment, growth, and enjoyment.
That was like a poetry slam.
Like the beast.
Yeah.
Do you think? Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say you're just getting to know
wanna-
like the beast. This is new for you, Lyra, and you will find out. But Andre, and then maybe Empress, I think you want to talk. So we'll go to Andre.
No, a lot of it resonated with me. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on anyone's toes. I agree that I think that personal fulfillment and the concept of like on paper, I think my son certainly likes the idea of being a neurosurgeon, but would he enjoy doing this every day and some sort of like realization to the day-to-day responsibilities and if this is something he'd actually like to pursue and the work that goes into it. Because we talked about how difficult and challenging STEM fields really are is important. I definitely reject the notion that children just want to ball hard. I don't think that's the case for all children, but I could see the point where you're infatuated with perhaps wealth at a young age. So yeah, I don't know, some good points and some points I kind of disagree with.
So I think it is obviously important to acknowledge that we don't want to push people into fields that they aren't ready for, right, or that they don't want to go into. However, it seems kind of like this is kind of the same responses that you hear, right, when you hear white people talking about, not just white people, also some conservatives as well, talking about why are we not seeing higher representation of X demographic in these fields, be that women, be that LGBTQ individuals, be that people of color, right? And the reality is unfortunately very solemn, right? Which is that we have a situation where a number of systemic factors, right? A, push people away from majoring in these fields. B, depress their performance in university and at work when they are in these fields, right? C, systemically get paid less when they go into these fields. And D, are often subject to both systemic issues of, be it racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. in the workplace, and just casual racism in the workplace. I've had instances during, like, as someone who is a published research author in a STEM field, right? I'm published in computer engineering, specifically around privacy design, right? And I've had comp sci classes, STEM classes, political science classes where there are more kids named David than there are women and people of color combined, right? Like, this highlights a little bit of an issue here, right? And why is it, right, that we see very often there is a high level of dropping out of students of color and women from STEM fields? Is it just because we're too dumb to succeed in these fields? I don't think so, right? And at my university in particular, we see that this pattern, though more pronounced in STEM fields, is apparent across the board in higher education, right? Black students tend to perform worse than their peers on average, as do Hispanic students. There are very few Black and Hispanic students that are doing better than their white peers, right? So this doesn't just happen because oh, well, they're just worse students, right? We know that factors like GPA are highly impacted by things like income, right? They're highly impacted by preparedness programs, what you had access to in your youth, what kinds of programs you were going through, right? So I am really happy that we're talking about, prioritizing the kinds of fields that people want to go into, looking at that kind of individualism, not forcing people into fields, because unfortunately that happens to all the time, right? That we get shoehorned into, fields that are considered more domestic or feminine. So definitely not what I'm looking for here, but at the same time, right? It's not just that people aren't going to these fields because they don't want to, right? I think that's really important to acknowledge here.
Yeah, one of the articles I read on this hits that point exactly. And I'm posting it in chat now, but it's like one of the reasons a lot of Black people aren't going into these fields is because there's a lot of stereotypes, and some of the people in these fields can't shake these stereotypes, and they don't feel like they actually belong because of the actions of their coworkers, and that's probably a really big answer. Why don't Black people consider this an option? Well, there seems to be a gate in the actions of the people who already dominated. You don't belong here, and if you get in here, we're gonna treat you a certain way, and it turns people off.
Yeah, not just that though.
I've had conversations with people in my field, weirdly enough, about how I get my hair like that is grossly uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was
and
I don't
and stuff like that. I shouldn't be hearing this from colleagues. I'm sorry.
I don't know about anyone else here, but like I don't really like working in a place where like I'm just going to feel uncomfortable every single day for something I can't control.
Or being in fine arts.
I'd like to say something about my fellow Negro Americans. When we think about the
I love you
academic
so much.
achievements of Negroes in America, we've witnessed something akin to a modern miracle, haven't we? Look at 1940, only 7% of Black Americans were graduating from high school. Now, what are those rates? 88%. This is only 2% points less than the national average of 90%. So, what do we have? We have a people who were enslaved beginning in the 17th century for over 200 years, who endured another 100 years of Jim Crow segregation, but yet, despite this, have been able to catch up with the national average in less than 100 years. So I understand that it might be difficult going into areas that are uncomfortable and unfamiliar. But if the past is any indication, and it should be, of what we're capable of, we have every reason to restore confidence in our young Black boys and girls that they can do difficult things.
Yeah,
I don't
so
think anyone's saying that you shouldn't be confident in them. Further, like I completely agree.
yeah, so it's unfortunate our friend GSU Gambit couldn't be here because it's a topic that he's passionate about, one we've argued about quite a bit. But I'll try to take his side a bit, right? One, like someone was talking about, the pushback Black people get when they get into the to pick these majors and get into these fields, right? I guess what could be said is that if people aren't flooding these fields, if we aren't trying, right, we aren't encouraging people to be the change that they want to see in the world, and then nothing will happen, right? And then on the other side, like these are like the biggest fields. Like these are fields that are going to have big growth. Like almost certainly, like when will we not need scientists, technology experts, engineers, and the people, doctors, yeah, like when will we not need those, right? So and they're prestigious, right? So if you're just talking about seeing African Americans in high places, this is the spots you want your children in. So why would we encourage them to do anything else, right? Like if you're talking about like having a good life for your child, it's in the STEM field, right? Like that's the best path, like that you can get through college, right? There's other paths you can go through, but if you're talking about through college, then definitely a STEM path, unless you're going to be like a soulless hedge fund manager or something, right?
I mean, I
Well,
think every degree is a
Okay,
matter of how you're
so
going to use it, though.
I think
Yeah, I
there's a
was
few
just-
things. Like,
Well, one of you. I
well, I
know.
was gonna
Go
say,
ahead,
like,
Mr. Fanatic.
All right, go ahead,
uh,
Fanatic.
yeah, there's a few things. Like, for one, I think like there's a difference between like what you can like lightly encourage something while like recognizing that otherwise it would be pretty harmful. You can lightly encourage something without like forcing them into like specific positions, making sure that they have options to not do this thing that you're talking about. Otherwise, you run the risk of like literally putting them in something that's not a good fit for them, and those results are almost always disastrous. I think I like the idea of encouraging these things when it's available, and like a large portion of the determining factors and why people don't go into those specific fields is because our education is like incredibly like African Americans receive significantly less education, and we put so much emphasis very often in sports and entertainment. And I think that's something that needs to be done at the home. The home it should be where the place where a lot of effort is putting highlighting some of the better like Black doctors and Black lawyers and Black so on and so forth, so that children can even see themselves in those sorts of positions. And then when you have a child that has the capability and has the goods, you can encourage those things. I mean, getting specific like engineering sets as toys for children and things like that. You can encourage these things. Like I don't think anyone here is arguing that you shouldn't encourage your children to do it necessarily, but I think that we do need to be realistic about what children can do. I would say more so than encouraging kids to get into STEM, I think it's more encouraging or more important to discourage kids from wasting a lot of money on a degree on underwater basket weaving or whatever the hell else that's like not going to
Is that actually a program? Is that like a real thing?
no, it's not. It's just my
No.
favorite. But like a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm gonna go and do my undergrad in or whatever. People do ridiculous stuff, religious studies, right? And it's like, I don't know how you're gonna make that work for you, right? Like I don't know how that's like that's it's a lot of times you can run into some serious problems trying to find employment after that. Some places will hire you just because you have a degree, but it's not going to be like the highest paying, right? So ultimately, I would say discouraging from bad degrees more so than encouraging for specifically STEM.
Well, the point I was gonna make to that is like the first half of what Mr. Fanatic said was on point. Like, while I do agree that, like, yeah, they are the change that like we personally want to see in the world right now. I don't know how I feel about like forcing them into these positions, right? Because like I don't want a doctor who's only a doctor because their parents forced them in and they hate it. So like I agree with Fanatic on that point. I don't know like the value of like useless degrees and whatnot. Like I'm not gonna even touch that with it because like I haven't done the research on that, but like I don't want to force people into the positions that they don't want to be in. I'm all for like having things that like promote it as like, yo, this is a valuable option. This will help you in life. You will be able to sustain yourself because like that's what most people care about. Like they care about helping, and then like they also need to sustain themselves in their lives and like live, affordably. And like that's another thing I'm worried about.
Chris, then Shark.
Yeah, I think that's really correct. We need to introduce and test people's like aptitude and interest in these things, right? My high school was based around design technology, and there was a lot of kids who hated it and didn't understand it and just flunked out of those classes completely, and not because they're dumb or anything. It's just that those fields did not fit them, right? And there was a bunch of other kids who did fit those classes and those courses. The only problem, the main problem we ran into is funding. When it came to getting like our robotics club funded, we had to get sponsors. We had to go out and beg people for money because our school didn't give us any. Like if you are introduced to these things and you're taught what they are, and you start to excel at them, and you start gaining an interest, and you start doing it in your free time, exploring these things. I think that's a clear indication of where you should go after that. You should be in those STEM classes because you have a clear interest in that. Just pushing kids into it is not going to help because you're going to get some people in there who don't like it, aren't interested in like advancing it, and just going to drop out and go somewhere else. Is wasted a bunch of their time. So yeah, I don't think anybody said anything I disagree with there.
Shark.
Yeah, like I mean, if you want to get more people into STEM, then here's one really good thing that you can do. Make sure you actually fund schools, like have really good pre-K, like have really good high schools. Why the fuck is my art teacher having to buy like their own supplies? Like why in the world is my like music teacher having to fix the reeds off of their own dollar? And like I mean, even here in I was exceedingly blessed to be able to have a early college and career program where I am, that's like almost connected right up to our community college. And it's had like a pretty good amount of funding. Thankfully, like around here, lots of people have put in a lot of work to make sure our education is good. Like black people tend to be in areas with really bad with extremely bad funding when it comes to their education. Lots of that funding, especially when it comes to high schools and stuff, are municipal like property taxes. And if you're usually a victim of systemic racism and generational poverty, you probably don't have too many property taxes and your school's falling apart. And listen, okay, I can be a big boy, all right? When I sit down in my chair in like English class and it collapses under me and I feel like a fat fuck, okay, that's bad for my self-esteem, and I'm not going to be doing well in my engineering class, okay? It's incredibly important, I think, to just generally push people towards things that you see that they're interested in. Like Lyra said, like, you want people to be in, you want to push people towards these things, and like STEM needs more black people in it, but everything needs more black people in it. I don't think black people are like specifically averse to being in STEM or anything. If you give them the opportunity to do it, I think they would love to do it. Absolutely. So it's and like working at it from home is like really good as well, but I mean at the end of the day, like these kids are spending like a very large portion of their waking hours in school. Make those schools good and then push them towards like really good things, and I think that they can really show you a lot. Like I mean, Like Wake the Beast said, in 100 years, we've been able to catch up to the national average. I mean, we are exceptional people. We can be if we have the opportunity to. We absolutely should. And also, Fanatic, all right, how dare you? All right, shit on underwater basket weaving. Okay,
Yeah.
listen,
This is
you
the
may
perfect
be mad at underwater basket weaving, but some schools you can be a swashbuckling pirate and you can get a pirate degree. That's sick as fuck. All right.
Listen,
Yeah.
Fanatic's just upset that he
I
didn't
know,
pass
I
underwater
know a
basket
computer
this
science
Andre,
professor who identifies as a pirate. Okay,
Yeah,
he is our favorite.
this is
Andre,
my
I just
actual
realized he
point.
might mean something different.
Andre, go ahead.
I think this is my actual point, and I know you said it jokingly, but like I 100% think that I should encourage my baby to do basket weaving or religious studies or whatever degree that he wants to pursue. I don't think there is such thing as a useless degree, just like there isn't a thing as like a useless passion. I don't think that. I think you're a prime example of it. You are a musician. Now, I would worry if my son said he wanted to be a musician about how financially lucrative this is and how self-sustaining he would be because this is a very competitive industry, but like I would have to encourage him to do the thing that he wants to do. I love the idea of him being a basket weaver or studying religion to whatever degree he wants.
I mean, listen, it's your prerogative. The thing is, I feel like very often it's really necessary that we provide our children with some sort of insulation from a lot of the degradation and things that are going to happen to them as a result of the systemic oppression that we're all facing, right? This being the all black everything panel. So with that being said, I think the idea is ultimately, yes, I like the idea of encouraging people to do things, but I would definitely encourage people to do things that aren't necessarily going to be something incredibly lucrative. I would encourage them to do those things on the side. You can be a butterfly collector all you want to, and I would encourage that you do your butterfly collecting for fun. But while you're doing your butterfly collecting for fun, I would absolutely encourage you to do something that's actually going to be viable. Not every degree is financially viable.
Sure,
When you go
sure.
to your school, you look at those numbers and they can tell you what those things are. I don't think you should ever discourage children from passions. In my case, it didn't even make any sense whatsoever. This was something I was particularly gifted. I was a freaking prodigy. The idea that you would tell a prodigy at a freaking instrument that he shouldn't be doing that and that he should probably be
Yeah,
pursuing computer programming is ridiculous.
I agree.
But not everybody's a freaking prodigy. I wouldn't tell my
Yeah.
nephews, yeah, man, go ahead and do that. Like there's a
But
difference.
sure. But I think the insulation that you're saying that you should provide could be hazardous. I don't think that like we should really dissuade them. And you're not saying dissuade from passions, but I guess this is like the framing of the initial question was like, should we push? I don't think we should ever push. I don't think we should push at all. I think the natural reaction to pushing someone into a field, even if it is STEM, is going to be to push back. Or maybe not. Or maybe they follow your lead and sort of like resent you for it. I think insulating them from the cruelty of the world if you're not financially solvent is important. I think what's more important if we can is I don't know, just encourage the fuck out of the things that they are passionate about, even if it is not financially lucrative. I think this is a lesson that you have to learn. And I think this is also something super important for young adults. So if we're talking, and I guess it depends on what age we're discussing, right? But my son's in 16, almost 17. I think this is a time for him to like pursue art and basket weaving and music and religious studies and whatever fields he wants. And then at some point, I would say like years later, if he's still on my couch at like 25, then we can have a conversation about like how he's going to pay for things and gain his independence. But I think young adults, I think we should push straight into the things that they love.
But that's the point that I'm talking about. You're already providing some of that insulation, right? Like the fact that he's
True,
going to
true,
be with
very
you
true,
on your couch, that means that you
very
can
true.
do that. Not everybody's in a
Fair,
situation where they're like where it's financially
it's
viable.
fair.
So specifically, if you can't, for example, wealthy white people, a lot of times they put their kids in specific types of schooling. I forget what it's called, but it's the one where it's not graded, but it's just basically about like just completing it, and I don't know, it's kind of
Montessori schools. That's what you're
that's
talking
it.
about.
Montessori
Oh
schools,
my
exactly
God,
it.
fucking
And
Montessori schools.
the problem with that is those things might work when you have wealthy Caucasian individuals whose children are going to be inheriting their businesses, and they
Sure.
have like these lucrative wealthy portfolios that they're going to be able to provide their children, and so then the children aren't necessarily going to need to struggle. You don't have to worry about how good you are in school. You don't really need school. Donald Trump's children didn't really need school.
Right.
And Donald Trump didn't either. That's why I mean, he did have to struggle. His dad gave him a small loan of $1 million.
No,
But my point being,
400 million. Yeah.
It's a
was
tiny
it? I
loan
thought it
of
was.
400.
He said
No, it's
he
just a
said
tiny loan.
he said a million. He lied. It was closer to 400 million.
Yo, let's
Are you
not be
sure?
uncharitable.
Yeah,
It was still a pretty small loan, okay? 400 million, a
Oh, he had to
million,
pay it
like
back with interest. He had to pay it back with
Why are we
interest.
Is that
talking
what
a
he
man
did?
who
Okay.
on the
That's
on
a
the
different
on the
subject.
apprentice
it's a
needed
valid
to
point.
But
It's a valid point.
Come on.
I'm kidding about that. But my point being is that like ultimately like when you have that sort of thing, you can do that. I have some siblings who are particularly wealthy, and so then their children, you don't have to put so much pressure on like you gotta go straight to college, even though there's still a lot of pressure there. But in like with some of my other siblings, their children was like, yeah, you had better be good in school. You had better do what you got to do because you're not going to be protected. I was in the same situation. My parents were not paying for a penny of my college. They weren't going to pay for anything. I had to get a scholarship. That was the only way I was going to be able to go. There was none of that installation. So I think you just if you can afford it, then do it. But I would say ultimately, and by the way, pushing isn't necessarily a heavy thing. You don't have to heavy-handedly push something. You can like lightly encourage it. We had the instruments and the music here, like in my life growing up, and that was the push that I needed. Like it wasn't like they were like telling me you're gonna be a musician. Like it was quite the opposite at times. So I don't know. I think you can lightly push something without like making them resistant.
I think we're hitting at like what Wake the Beast was saying earlier, because like if your passion is basket weaving, right? Like let's take that as the example we've been going with, right? I don't necessarily see a reason why you shouldn't be able to do that for like, your career, your job or whatever, but like you need to make sure that that's something you're willing to do every fucking day. Something you're willing to put the effort into, right? Like you may love it at first, but what happens when you start this and then like 6 months into it, you're like on your 600th basket of a 700 order and you're like, fuck me, I actually hate this. Right? Like, well, then you've just sunken all that time into it. So, like, I think I see what Mr. Fanatic and Andre are trying to say about like you shouldn't like push kids away from what they're passionate about, but like make sure they know that the standard options are still there. Because like I don't want to see anyone fail because they sink all their time into like stuff that doesn't pan out in the future.
So
Yeah, also like black people, lots of them live like closer to the margins. So it's not like black people are just so like predisposed to making bad decisions. Black people make as many like bad decisions as other people. The only difference is when like someone whose family makes two, three, $400,000 a year, when their kid makes a mistake, they can like bounce right back. When someone makes $27,000 a year, when their kid makes a mistake, they're just gone. So when you just make a mistake, like any mistake that can like fall apart, when it comes to like whoever like useless degrees, I'm not necessarily sure. But like let's say butterfly collecting, okay? Butterfly collecting, it could be just on its face, could be dumb. But maybe the butterfly collecting moves into something a little bit more. And they could get into like etymology, the study of insects, and that's what
You
really
could work
pushes
in
them into
museums
that.
with butterfly
You
collecting.
you absolutely could, or you can be a researcher when it comes to studying insects, especially with climate change being really big. I know there's going to be a lot more open spaces when it comes to insects. They're really vital to our environment, and I love ladybugs. They're really cool looking. Um, if you like fanatic, like you said, if you want to push people, like the push that you needed to get into your music thing, was it being in your life, like having these schools and stuff, like having the tools there for people to, hey, one day maybe you walk into the music room and you press a key on the piano, and that's like what shoots you into the stratosphere of being like a big musician. The people who didn't have that wouldn't. The best musician right now could be like working in some factory job right now because they didn't have the opportunity to actually make those things happen. And one really interesting thing that I saw, a study that I looked at not too long ago, is black parents actually really highly value college when it comes to their kids. They highly value it. Um, as far as I remember, not as much as like Asian and Hispanic parents, but it's like small margins, like within like 10%. But it's actually far more than even like white parents. So it's not even also like the lack of like pushing. The pushing is there. I feel like just with like a little bit of opportunity, lots of black people can really impress a lot of people. And also like when it comes to making mistakes, like one of the really big reasons that lots of people wouldn't want to go into college is the money. Like lots of people can't afford that. So one thing, a really big thing to do if you want to see more black people in a lot of these really expensive sort of degrees that it's really hard to get into, especially when you start off near the bottom, would be help making these colleges tuition free. You go there, instead of wasting all of your money, you just waste your time.
yeah, so I kind of wanted to bring in other communities. So going back to the question itself, right? Um, as is the case in other communities, education is seen as a way towards collective advancement. All right, so what exactly does that mean? And is it something that we want? Right, so collective advancement, like having more people be high wage earners, right? Like, first of all, do we all agree that would be good for the Black community if we had more African Americans? Not even talking about like just being like some fucking CEO, right? Just like high earners, moving more people into the middle class and upper middle class. Would that not be a good thing total for the Black the community at large? We agree? No one disagrees?
Yeah.
All right, great.
By and large, yeah.
All right. And if that's the case, right, then should we be hesitant in discouraging things that are outside of STEM? All right. Let's say you guys don't say maybe not push towards. Okay, discourage literally everything else, because like we see in like South Asian communities, we had someone who was going to be part here who was part of South Asian, unfortunately couldn't join. But we see in South Asian communities, right, a big push to be engineers or doctors, right? Whether the kid wants or not, hey, you're going to do this, right? You're going to do this. I guess you can argue about whether it's healthy or not, but you can see that their communities just are more wealthy, right? They're in a position to pass on more to their children because like once they grow up, because they have more money, they chose the right path in this capitalist society. So why shouldn't we do the exact same thing? Why wouldn't that be better off in the long run? And maybe at some point where Black people do have a lot of generational wealth to pass on, then you can do whatever you want. But at this point where we are at collectively would not be best. We just pushed earlier. Go ahead, Lyra.
So, sorry, my sound is kind of weird right now. Let me know if I cut out again. But as for my response for that, definitely obviously there is some like pros to like pushing people to like go your children to go into these STEM fields. Like as you mentioned, like the South Asian and Asian community in general, they're like willingness to get their kids basically like damn near force their kids into these STEM fields. And like as a result, their communities tend to be more wealthy. However, there is a trade-off with that because these communities also have a huge issue when it comes to suicide, particularly the college age. So there is a trade-off there. And like I think it's much more beneficial that we make sure more people are happy because obviously there are like some majors have a tendency to make more money than others, but like as long as the people who are doing it are happy and have a greater quality of life, because like listen, I know my kids could make so much more money if they go into coding and computer science, but I don't know a whole lot of mentally stable computer science majors, and a lot of them were forced into that major by their parents. Is the ones who I see they're like who have depression and things. So I would rather they like go into a major that they're willing to go into, because I mean if you force everyone, then you're gonna get a big issue with suicide and mental health. So I think it's a much better trade-off to just want your kids to do something that makes them happy, because and like my kids they don't have to be the richest to be happy. But at the same time, I do get like from a parent's perspective why you would. I'm not a parent, but I could see why Andre and Fanatic are saying have such a focus on like, well, how lucrative is this career is, and like that's a very important thing to be worried about. When it comes to my family in particular, my dad always said, "Do it as a hobby until it becomes a career." But I guess I more so lean on the side of I would rather people be happy and do the major that makes them happy than the one that makes them the most money.
Our friend
My dad
Clavicus
said advance the family over and over again. So
our
very,
friend-
very different childhoods.
Our friend Clavicus and chat, who's a tier 3 sub, shout out to you, Clavicus, says many of us want to push for better material conditions for people, but don't want to push people towards choices that will produce better material conditions. So like this is a choice that will produce better material conditions. You're saying you want them to be happy, but if people do not have their economic needs met, right, then they will not be happy. Look at so many African Americans having to go through this pandemic, right? One, not having the economic stability to weather this, right, and just in general. But then two, also end up being frontline workers or like you could have gotten a degree, but still have been a frontline worker. So that's just not just for people who aren't degree holders, right? But that's where we were at. We were disproportionately put in those positions, and other communities who are in those STEM fields, who have those kids in those STEM fields, well, they were fine, right? They were having us deliver to them their foods, right? So in the end, like talking about these choices, right? Why would we not push them like just long term, right? And also, I disagree that like there's like this epidemic of computer science people who are not mentally stable. I reject that out of hand. But why would we not push them to improve their material conditions? This is a way that you can do that, right? This is the way that you can set yourself and your family in the future in a position to be economically stable. Why would we not want them to do that?
I think the conversation for me is about risk and reward, and the mental health and the happiness of the economic conditions have to be addressed, and this puts us in better positions to be happy, especially in situations like we were just in with the pandemic. And I mean, this is a great example, but I'd rather work to the bone so my son has like I don't know, what if he sleeps in a camper and lives off the grid and doesn't have, great economic means. He's not a tier 3 sub to PrimeCayes channel, so he can't get his message read, but he's still good and he's happy. I mean, I much prefer this to them, to him being closer to the median income. My main concern is not his financial stability, it's his happiness. Although true,
those two things are tied.
If he falls True,
Not
but I'm just
all.
saying I will not sacrifice one for the other. And if the STEM field is not something that he can find himself in, it goes back to this word push. I will not push. I think a lot of panelists today have said introduce. This is brilliant because I think collectively we're not introducing our children to fields that are jobs that may be great for them, that they enjoy and may help their economic condition. So I will introduce, I will encourage, I will not push. I'd rather, he live in a camper in a forest and just happy as fuck but broke.
Yeah, like
I think
a
this
lot
is
of
one
my
of the fundamental. Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say something just quick. Like a lot of my family's in the medical field. It's good money, but I am not built for the medical field in any capacity. I can't stand the sight of blood in real life, and I just would not. I would be not fit for that field, no matter how financially stable it is. And I'm just not built for those hours. You work in the medical field in any capacity, your day is gone. Like most of your week is gone. So like you have to be okay with things like that. And for me, I'm just not like I just can't. So if I was pushed in that direction, especially with my proclivity to like depression, like it would not be good for me. And I think it wouldn't be good for a lot of people. But yeah, that's it for me.
But there's other options, right? There's not just medical. There's engineering, there's technology, there's science, right?
Yes, that would work out more for me
Yeah.
personally because I am in that. I am interested in those things. But I'm saying like not everybody is. For some people, when they look at some code,
Yeah.
they lose their minds because the amount of
Okay.
letters and numbers and digits they see on the screen, they just can't handle it. And some people they love it. So it's up to the individual.
Let's go to Wake the Beast.
Yes, this is one of the fundamental differences between, I guess you could say, Western culture and the culture of the Far East is the level of influence the parent has when it comes to choosing the romantic partner or the career path of their child. In America, we value individual liberty over collective progress. It's the individual over the family name. And it seems like most of the people here on the panel are in agreement that pushing your child is a bad idea. But I want to argue against that for just a moment, just to test just how much you all really feel that that's the best course of action. I'm going to say that we've already had a generation of this, of boundless freedom, of allowing children to choose what they wanted to do. And what has this produced? This has produced the mom's basement generation. Millennials are more likely than any generation before them to live at home with their parents. So because we allow children to do what they want, they chose to do nothing. They chose to
Oh fuck.
Has nothing to do
maximum
with the
latitude
financial
in
crisis.
choosing our romantic partners. We choose not to get married and we have no children. So I'm going to say, for the sake of argument, what if we did that? What if we just became like a leg brace to this generation and gave them that sort of pressure to produce those results? And when I think about that analogy of a leg brace, I'm reminded of the father of Elizabeth II, the current monarch, of England. Her father was never meant to be king. He only became king because his brother left the throne to marry an American woman. But when he was a child, his father forced him to wear leg braces. He didn't need them, but his father himself was knock-kneed, so he imagined his child would be too. He didn't need them, but he wore them anyway. And despite that pressure, when he became a man, his legs were incredibly straight. So why not? Like those leg braces, put that uncomfortable pressure on our children to create that future progress.
Well, there's a few things I want to say. For one, we didn't have like a generation of freedom to do whatever we wanted, to make our own choices. A lot of our choices are still influenced by a lot of the systemic oppression and things that are still very rampant. Like the stuff that we've been dealing with, it's not that long ago. I mean, we say we had a one generation of doing that, and the generation above me, my mother's generation, was still alive when the Civil Rights Act was passed. The crack epidemic happened in the 80s. That absolutely impacted my father. I would think that even the crime bill of the 90s impacted a lot of my family, because of course poverty begets crime, and then crime is directly affected by that crime bill. And so I think the idea that we've just had a generation that's able to just do whatever the freak they want to do, I don't think that that's true whatsoever. And furthermore, I would say that like in a lot of these other cultures, I think as Lyra kind of pointed out, there is like a generation of like a pretty big suicide problem. We look in cultures, very traditional cultures like Japan, where they're having a marriage crisis, they're having a fertility crisis. These things are a suicide crisis. So the problems are still there. Their birth rate is literally at a crisis level. It's problematic. They're literally considering opening up citizenship to foreign actors, specifically because like it's a problem. So and then obviously in Korea, where they have these tests, this really large test that has a humongous impact on what you end up doing with your life, and the suicide rate at that age for people who score really low on that test is extremely high. Because once people start discovering that like this is the direction my life is going to go, and they're unhappy with it, the people, depression and mental health and suicide like skyrocket. I would imagine if you started putting kids who are unfit into places like engineering, where they have this pressure to try to be successful in a field that they're not fit for, and then these children end up dropping out or failing in high school, and failing in college, and now they have this debt that's burdening them. I would imagine that the suicide rate would completely skyrocket. And that, it sounds like it would be a likely outcome, considering how unprepared a lot of African American people are for college, specifically because of the fact that our education is just piss poor in comparison, because of obviously some of the things that are happening systemically with our education being determined by municipal whatever. So you get all that. So I would say, like, I like the idea of encouraging. Again, it's always about encouraging. You want something from your children, you emulate that thing from your children. You can demonstrate like a healthy relationship, so your children want to emulate healthy relationships. You can introduce and put a high focus on education at really young ages and have really good rates for success in that area. But that, again, I think the idea of like trying to take away people's freedom is definitely not a step in the right direction. You will see disastrous results. Freedom does yield better results ultimately.
Right. And I
Excellent
think there's
points.
a
I want
very
to
big
push back just a little bit though, if that's okay. Hope I'm not trespassing on anyone else's time.
Yeah, do it.
My mother also
Yeah, go ahead.
was more directly impacted by American segregation. As a black woman growing up in the American South, she was directly impacted by Jim Crow and a lot of those policies and legislative acts that were in place. But I have to remind you, Fanatic, this is not your generation and mine. And since then, and even during that time, every generation of Black Americans has produced a fresh crop of autonomous individuals who have been able to rise above their circumstances. And there's no reason to expect any less than our own progeny. In fact, what we have is a legacy of overcoming difficult hardships, beginning with Middle Passage, beginning with being sold and auctioned in North America, beginning with the drawing of the color line and being held to one end of it, beginning with being let go from indentured servitude and not being given any land, unlike your white counterparts. But again, even in those generations, you've had wonderful Black individuals who've been able to overcome. And I think that our kids can do the same thing. I think it comes down to how much confidence you instill in them and how far you're willing to go as a parent to make sure that they do not fail.
Sure, I think there's lots of steps you can do to make sure your children don't fail, but I don't think that those steps require, or I don't think that one of those steps should be forcing your children into fields that they don't want to be successful in. I think like teaching your children to read earlier. I think putting it again putting a focus on education. I think maintaining good mental health through whatever resources you have available, and stable relationships, I think, can help foster some of the great things that you would hope to be able to be present in your children. I think there's a billion different steps. I think spending and investing lots of time and energy into your children and not allowing the daycare to raise them, or not allowing the television to raise them, and being very vigilant about what it is that they're watching and entertaining themselves with, what sort of music you put on for your children to entertain themselves with, what you choose for activities, their health, their diets. There's so many things you can do that would be very beneficial for your children, that can yield great benefits. I don't think one of those things is forcing your children into engineering. I think again we do have a generation of people who are learning a lot about like what's going on in the world, and we have college attendance significantly higher than it has ever been, and I think all of these things are good. I would just again say encouraging positive things is great. Forcing engineering on kids is just awful.
I'm going to push back on this, but first let's go to Lyra and Chris.
Right. So what I would say was like I think there is a very big difference between forcing someone to do something and encouraging them to do something. Whenever you force a child or anyone to go into a field or into college that they don't want to be in, I mean, you're going to be putting a mental health damper on them. That's just how it works. Because you're forcing them into something that they don't want to be in, and there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that. Whereas like if at the same time it's like, okay, obviously you want to encourage your child to do something that will like give them money, something that they will be financially stable in, and at the same time happy in. So it's all about achieving that balance. And as for like how to go about achieving that balance when it comes to how and when to encourage your child to do something, I think that only speaks to how important it is to allow for more options, not only when it comes to like giving your child your blessing to choose a major, but with the school system on a high school and middle school level, because it's like because then they don't have to make choices between these three majors. You don't have to choose between doctor, coding, or music, because like there are so many fields. There is a plethora of fields for children to go into, both in the job market. I mean, fight of job crisis, all that. I know, but like there are many things. There's no shortage of passions out there for people to be able to pursue. So I think that only speaks to how important it is to make it so that there are way more options at lower levels of education, so that these children have the opportunity to go and try out. Maybe I'll try a little geology, like me. Maybe I'll try some coding software, like GSU. Maybe I'll see what liberal arts is like, what classical literature is like. Just creating all these options that they can look around and see. And then hopefully, they'll choose a major that they can get that balance of like, hey, I'll be making an amount of money that I'm happy with, and also I'll actually be enjoying what I do. And if halfway through college they decide, hey, I don't like what I'm doing, I remember this one class that I took in high school that I really enjoyed, and then they can fall back to that other major. So I think it all just comes down to we can solve a lot of issues just by making it clear to our younger generations that they have more options and giving them more options, both when it comes to paying and knowing what to go into and what they do and don't like.
Chris.
Yeah, this idea that millennials had this freedom to kind of go into do whatever they want is I I don't bro, that's kind of ridiculous. Or grew up in the '90s. I'm like as millennial as it gets. There was no financial freedom. Like everything I've done and got into is through sheer force of will, and I had people pushing back against me for it. I didn't like have a lot of friends. You get made fun of. You got like a lot of things pushing back on you, and you have to I had to force my way through a lot of this, and like I have cousins and friends who had the same interest or different interests, and a lot of them got just stopped in their tracks and just pushed towards a regular job, a regular career, like a 9 to 5, because they had either no encouragement, no financial ability, or any like um, introduction or like knowledge of the thing of how to do it, right? because they don't have you don't have like teachers like trying to get you into these things. Thankfully for the internet, like I was able to look up things, look up what art tools are the best to use for certain like mediums, right? I was able to look up like how to build a computer or how to like get into certain technology fields. I was curious in that way, and I didn't let people stop me even when they told me I shouldn't be doing certain things. Yeah, I think
I would
millennials
call
are.
that freedom.
It, I don't know. I had to make a lot of sacrifices. Like those things came with sacrifices, right? I like sure. I guess you can call that because you're able to do it. I guess you can call that freedom. But I think freedom is when you're able to do that thing and you don't have to give up something to do it, right? Right. Like you're able to go into that thing freely. I had to like I had to do things like that were a detriment to myself in order to do certain things, right? So I don't agree with that. Um, yes, I'm an artist now, but like it took a lot for me to get there. And yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say I was free to do it. I don't know.
So,
Did someone force you to be an artist?
No, they barely encouraged me.
I would call that freedom, but excellent point.
so, but what
They could try.
to Fanatic, I want to push back on what you said. Fanatic, you said like, well, uh, the path is involving like don't let the daycare system raise your kids, like have a greater interest. Well, you have that option when you are economically successful, right? Those parents are the ones who don't have to have their kids within like a daycare system, who get to spend time with the children after school, helping them with their homework, right? Who get to provide tutoring services, right? The ones who are in a successful career path, right? Not the other ones. No, you have to take your kids to school, daycare center, right? And then your kids are, well, hopefully they'll have some sort of free tutoring option at your school. Because if not, well, that's too bad. Myself and my partner, see, we have to work. Hopefully just two jobs between each other, but maybe not, maybe more, right? We don't have that option, so we don't get a chance to put in the time and effort that we would want to with our kids, right? It's not a lack of desire. It's just simply we got to work. We're not in those great fields. So
Well, no, so that's not true at all. So, my sister, who happened to marry the Jewish dude, his parents like literally didn't raise him at all. He was raised by a series of nannies, actually. Both of his parents are incredibly successful. One of his mother is a lawyer. Both of his parents are lawyers. But his mom was more successful as a lawyer than his dad was because his dad happened to have a seizure condition. But yeah, like he would get picked up from school. He would go immediately, like the daycare would pick him up from school. And then he would stay there with this lady for X amount of hours until his mom got off of work, sometimes as late as 7 o'clock, 8 p.m. She'd pick them up. They would go home, eat dinner, and then he would go to bed. And then during the weekends, most of the time, the mother didn't really have much to do with him. And you find that in like in a lot of success circles, that very successful people have a series of nannies raising their children. In fact, it was just trending on the Twitter, I want to say about like a week ago, the no nanny challenge, where they were challenging celebrities to raise their children for X amount of time using no nannies whatsoever. Almost none of them would even dream of doing it because most of the time it's like, nope, I got the money, I'm not doing that. So it's not just the wealthy people. I mean, it's not just the people in poverty who are having to use daycare and things like that. And then some of those things, I want to say, are going to be based on personal choice. You choose when you have children. You choose what career you're going to pick. You choose these things. Now, I understand that a lot of conditions can cause people to put themselves in scenarios where now this is their option. Plan B happens to be my plan A on has been plan A on many an occasion because I recognize, like, I'm not in the position. I'm not married, so I'm not having any children out of wedlock. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I can't provide the optimal situation for my children. So in the same sense, I think people can make those choices. Now, once you put yourself into that position where you don't have those options, yeah, you're going to make some awful choices. But again, you have the choice to prevent that from happening in the first place.
So okay, all right. So now you're introducing the whole like pull out forehead, whatever. All right, so I'm not gonna go down that path with you. All right, but when you are successful, you have the option, right? If you do not have the will to raise your children yourself, right? You want to pass them off to someone else, well, then that it is what it is, right? And that wouldn't have changed if you were poor. Like, well, no matter what career path you're chosen. We're talking about individuals who do have the will, the desire, like I said previously, to raise your children yourself, to spend all that time that you can into creating a strong next generation. But if you don't have that, again, that doesn't matter. But it's not an option if you don't have the economic success, right? Like, it's just off the table for you. So yeah, like, it's a great anecdote. Yeah, your friend has I don't know. Your friend was raised by nannies, but sure, okay, great. But like, the point is, we want to give people the options, have that ability, and then more parents will choose that option when they have it. But how do they do that? Economic success. And the STEM field, right? We're talking about, again, advancing the community in general. STEM fields are the best way at this point through college to do that.
So first off, my mother happened to raise all 7 of us, and she was on welfare for a significant portion of that time. My mother stayed at home. She wasn't out there working a regular job for a humongous portion of that time. She ended up going to school, but she made the choice. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mother. She wanted to be there for her children, and she didn't use the daycare system. You can make those choices. It depends on how you structure your life. It depends on how things work. Eventually, my mother went to school, got her degrees, and now she's incredibly, upper middle class. But it didn't start out that way. And not just her, also my cousins. Most of the people in the church that I grew up in, and most of them, that was something that they favored. So my cousins, I think there's 7 of them, and of the 7 of them, I think 6 of them have stay-at-home moms. Like, that's the culture that they live in. So their children aren't being raised by. Now, meanwhile, most of them are successful. They're lawyers. They live in really upper class neighborhoods. They're doing particularly well for themselves, especially considering they were raised in poverty. But you can make the choice to structure your life around the idea that someone can be a stay-at-home mom. There can be women working really good jobs. I have some friends that do that, where their wife is a cosmetic surgeon, and the husband is a stay-at-home dad. These things happen. You can make the choice to have those influences on your children. I've watched an entire generation of people do that. My mother's generation. It was not just my mother, several of my cousins, and so on and so forth. So it is a choice. Again, you can structure your life around that if you want to. It just depends on how you want to live and how you want to structure your life.
So hard to disagree there, but we'll have to leave it there. We'll move on to the next topic. Fanatic, you and I can yell at each other about that later. Very much looking forward to it. All right, moving on. Topic 2. Within the Black community, there has been a lot of discussion about the lack of fathers within our households. This is put forward as a reason for many of the societal ills that we face. But does a child specifically need a man in the house? What about homes with 1 or 2 moms? Are they not equally capable of raising strong children? And do these children specifically need a father figure, quote unquote father figure, or can they simply have other strong male role models in their family or community? And credit goes to Katarana. Shame we didn't have her here. She really wanted to talk about this issue. But yeah, we'll go around. A minute-long introduction. So, Andre.
Yeah, I mean, I hate this conversation a little bit. I was raised by my mom. I don't believe it's important. I think what's important when you're young is to have role models and influences, positive examples of what to be and what the potential there is. I don't think that that's necessarily important to have like a male figure. I don't think that you even need a male role model. I think that you could have 2 female parents and do exceptionally well. I think that you could have non-gendered parents. I think that you could like, this conversation is kind of silly to me. A conversation that I think is important is around support systems and having adults in view that can sort of guide you and show you the way. But this stereotype of like, I don't know, it's insulting, and no, you don't need it. Short answer.
Okay, thanks so much. Shark.
Usually when we get on the topic of like black fatherlessness, we're it's kind of a proxy to like other problems, typically, like why the fathers aren't there. Lots of people want to bring up like how, like, some people try want to bring up that like black people are like just don't like black men just don't care about their kids, which is just false. For many different reasons, we can get into that. But when it comes to like needing a father figure, I feel like lots of people use this as a proxy to talk about like how black fathers typically aren't in the house with like the drug epidemic and like crime and everything. That's a thing, but we don't. Studies have shown we don't need a father necessarily. Actually, gay couples do. Gay couples' children do better in school and going on further in life than straight couples typically. But the reason why we usually say that is because the black fathers typically black fathers can be like ripped from the home sometimes, but we don't need like a mother and a father. We need two parents, and typically that's a heterosexual relationship with like the mom and the dad, and men are typically commit more crimes, so the fathers can't be there. But like two men and two women can easily raise a kid with like that can be well rounded, that have more people in their life. Family friends can be role models. People that they look up to in like media or something can be role models. You don't need specifically a man and a woman. You just need two, at the very least, parental figures providing income, providing support, providing care.
All I heard from that is be gay, like God intended. Fair enough. Good point.
Working on it.
What?
Chris.
Yeah, I agree. I don't
Fucking
think
straight people.
a strong father figure is needed. I believe what's more needed is a strong financial background, family system, and community. How that family system is made up, it really doesn't matter. Some individuals, they need that male role model, but that's not always the case, and sometimes that's always to a detriment to them. My mother, like bless her, she was always looking for that like strong father figure for me, and thank God it wasn't my actual father because I know him, but like I shudder to think of the person I would become if I, submitted to that type of influence. Well, his type of influence, right? And the type of people she brought around to be that like male role model weren't always good people, like at all. What I needed more was like just good role models in general. And I had those in my teachers and people in my community and like mentors and such. Like I that strong father figure is not always like a detriment to the child. I I don't know. Yeah, that's all I have to say on it.
Like the beast.
The benefits of having a father in the home with you cannot be duplicated or replaced under any other circumstances than simply having a father in the home with you. In fact, the benefits are so well documented that collectively we refer to them as the fathering effect. And again, this refers to the unique attributes that we see in children, both boys and girls, in their development and reaching those developmental milestones who have active, engaged fathers in the home. And what I mean by an active, engaged father is not just a father who sends gifts or who sends money on occasion, but having those day-to-day interactions with that male role model, more specifically with the father. This past spring, I drove my son across the country and I introduced him to his extended family members, which was pretty big culture shock for him because for the pretty much all of his life, all 3 years of it, it's just been he, my wife, and I. But what I learned was that even if you do have two parents in the home, it's not really just you and your wife raising the child. Everyone in your family pitches in and offers advice and offers direction when appropriate. But again, there are no documented effects. There are no relationships that have been documented that can demonstrate the same impact in the development of young boys and girls and having their father play an active role in their development.
Okay. Mr. Fanatic.
Yeah, I think the idea that like children can just be raised without a father in the home with no harm is just ridiculous. I mean, the data has been there for like for so long, for so many years. Children in fatherless homes are. I had some data here. It says their Children in father-absent homes are almost 4 times more likely to be poor. In 2011, 12% of children in married couples' family were living in poverty compared to 44% of children in mother-only families. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services states fatherless children are at a dramatically greater risk of drug and alcohol abuse. There is significantly more drug use among children who don't live with their mother and father. Children of single-parent homes are more than twice as likely to commit suicide. But it doesn't just stop there. There's a really huge study done by a guy named Mark Regnerus. He studied the effects of children born in same-sex relationships. The outcome from his study, which was over 15,000 Americans between the ages of 18 and 39, found that there were some serious differences in outcomes for children when compared to just a randomly selected heterosexual children. It was a really humongous study, and I think they said on the vast majority of outcomes, that on 40 different tested outcomes, there were these crazy different results. So I think the idea that we can just sit here and pretend as if like single parent motherhood should be praised or something, I think is absurd. I think the data is out there. I think fathers are absolutely important just as much as mothers are. I think, yeah. So I think, yeah, that's it.
Thanks so much, Empress.
I think that when it comes to this issue, we often see it framed, as I think Wake the Beast and Mr. Fanatic just have, within the importance of having a father figure compared to homes that lack fathers, often single-parent households, right? And I think they're right. There are a lot of factors that are shown in study after study that children who have a father in the home have significantly better outcomes. So the question is, why is this the case, right? There's a variety of income factors related to this. There's a variety of social factors. Child rearing is not, right, a one-person job, right? It is something that we have pushed further into a one-person job, right, by moving away from intergenerational households, by moving away from communal responsibility for child rearing, and the vilification of the single mother, right? As opposed to actually helping individuals who wind up in these situations and taking collective responsibility for the children within our community as a society, right? We've instead put these people into the corners of society who are often systemically discriminated against in the workplace, systemically discriminated against in terms of income and fields that they have access to. They're often likely to, turn to, whatever they need to do, right, to care for their child, right, which means that they're going to be spending less time with their child, right, which is going to result in worse outcomes, right. So I think it's important to understand where these disparities come from, right, not just highlight that these disparities are from the absence of a father, like actually talk about where they're coming from, and how we address those issues, not just by introducing fathers, but also collectively as a society taking responsibility for our children and the effects of our economy.
Lyra.
Right? So it's not about having a strong man in the household. It is not about having a strong woman in the household. It's about having strong, supportive parents in general. And like, of course, there's like a lot broken families are. As we were mentioning earlier, there's plenty of data to explain like why it can be damaging for a child to be missing a parent, and how it is usually like way more beneficial to have both parents because like, hey, they're going to be more likely to have more of a financial backing. They're more likely to have more opportunities to spend time with either parent as opposed to just having one parent spending all their time at one job. But when it comes, I don't think that it like comes down to like I don't think you have to have a father in the household because you could have two moms. At the same time, you don't have to have a woman in the household. You can have two fathers. You can have two non-binary parents. But what it really comes down to is like how the ability of those parents to be able to support their children both financially and mentally. It's not something as simple as like, well, you need to have a father in the household because like there are plenty of households who like chase after these father figures and like even heterosexual like nuclear families that have a father and a mother, and the children wind up being very damaged because it doesn't matter what gender their parents are what matters is how they're able to support them, both financially and mentally, and spiritually even. I think it more so comes down to having those good role models and having two strong parents. The gender of the parents, that's honestly besides the point. I think that matters way less than a parent's ability to be able to support their child. Because hey, if an adult comes into a child's life every day and goes, "Hey, how are you? How was school today? How are you doing? You need help with your homework?" It doesn't matter what gender that adult is. What matters is that there is an adult helping a child. While obviously fathers and mothers are important, I think what's more important is less about their gender and more about their willingness to support the child.
Pyro.
You there?
He's almost got it. Make sure he's still on the call. Pyro, yeah, he is. So Pyro, yeah, we can't hear you. If you're talking, Pyro, sorry,
Professional streamer.
yeah, we can't hear you. You're not muted on Discord. So we'll come back to Pyro. While he works that out. All right. So open to the panel.
Yeah, so let me jump in. I'm mad. I think Wake the Beast and Fanatic, you're entirely wrong. I don't know if you could be more wrong. I appreciate that you've brought in studies to this, and I'm not going to respond with anecdotes, but I think we are talking about some economic conditions, as other panelists have said, that are beneficial in having two parents. But I think you could have a single parent who's financially solvent and perhaps doesn't need it. But more beyond the point, it's 2021. Men are obsolete. We don't need them. I see a household being very successful with, two moms. I see what about a household with three moms, poly relationship, just a bunch of ladies raising children. I think Lyra, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but Lyra hit the nail on the head. Father is not important, and honestly, neither is mother. I think parent is the only thing that matters. I think that having two parents is probably more beneficial in most situations than one parent. I certainly wouldn't want to argue that, but I think like the idea that male in the home is important. I think this notion is untrue. I understand the statistics you provided. I just can't see how a man is needed for this, or a woman really.
Yeah, also one of the really big problems and limitations to lots of these studies is one really big thing when people use them, they conflate mother and father with homosexual couple, when the real study is comparing mother and father with a single parent. And people just keep
That didn't
comparing just
happen. That's
mother.
not what I did though. That's
Okay.
not the study that I was looking at. So I don't know if you guys
Okay.
want to just keep
Shark,
talking past this, the data.
Let Shark
cool.
finish his point, please, Shark.
Okay. So still, the totality of lots of these studies are very limited. One really big thing is a meta-analysis of lots of these studies have shown that one really big thing that that happens is that when it comes to homosexual couples, once people at school or other parents, they find out that kid is in a homosexual couple, that kid is their parents are gay, they start to treat the kid like shit. And that leads to negative outcomes socially for that kid as well. It's not just that. Once again, they just need at the very least two parents. Gay couples have been shown all of the time to fare equally or above or just around the same a distribution of heterosexual couples all the time. When it comes to fathers being in the household and people comparing fathers being in the household to fathers not being in the household, they conflate that once again with just homosexual couples when it's just two parents at the very least that we need to talk about here. Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen any research to say that gay couples just destroy children.
Well, that's kind of ridiculous.
Sorry for that. I don't want to cover you.
I was just gonna say really quickly. One, that sounds ridiculous. I would appreciate it if I wasn't strawmanned in that way. No one's saying that gay couples destroy children. That sounds a little bit absurd. Furthermore, I really don't care about anecdotes, right? I'm always gonna look at data for these things, right? You can tell me all you want to that a father not in the home has no impact on children, and I genuinely don't care about what you think, because if there's data out there that says otherwise, then I'm gonna go with the data. And it seems to me that the data that I'm looking at seems to say that this is the case. So I genuinely can't care less about an opinion there.
So what does it say about this compared to say homosexual parents? right? Or the presence of a mother or two mothers versus two fathers? Or are you just saying that compared to single parenting?
The study that I was looking at was looking at looking at a comparison from homosexual couples to heterosexual couples. That's all it was comparing. So it wasn't comparing them to single parents.
Yeah, and what does it say the
different
causal
outcomes.
factors are in this study that are resulting in the poor
I don't
outcomes? Of
I don't I don't
homosexual-
know I don't know what it said the causal factors were. It was just showing that these were the outcomes.
I mean, it's your study. That's what I'm asking you. You could take
I don't know. I
if you
can
want
I can link
it
you
that
to
way.
the I can link you to the study.
I'd
Yeah,
like
yeah,
link.
that'd be
If you
perfect.
post it in Discord, I'd like to read it.
Okay, Lyra, go ahead.
So, to the defense of like how it can be important to have a particular parent of a gender in the household, because like I never want to come across as saying like, you know, men are important, that you don't need them 2020, because it's like, hey,
don't.
fathers are important. You just don't need them to have a successful child. But at the same time, you know, every child is different, every household is different. And there are definitely situations in which a child is, you know, financially supported. You know, they have a very rich family, and yet they still grow up with like mental health issues because their father stepped out, or their parents got a divorce. I'm sorry, I keep saying divorce, but their parents got a divorce, or their father stepped out, and otherwise, vice versa, their mother stepped out. So I don't. There are still cases in which, you know, and I think what's more so lacking there is not necessarily having a man in the house. It's just that there is a child missing a parental figure that they used to have that's now not there anymore. So I just wanted to bring that up, like, you know, obviously, if you're talking about like, you know, a child being born into a family or adopted, and like being raised from a young age, is like that's different. But if you're talking about a household that that a child grew up in, and that household later on becomes broken, that is obviously a case where, like, you know, there are some, there could be some damage, even if that family is well off. There could still be some damage to the child because there's a parent that they're missing. But even then, I think it's more so, the more important factor is because that they have a parental figure that they once had that is now missing, and that could go towards a father or a mother. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Oh, Chris.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
Prime, I saw that post in chat replaced by someone named Hitachi. That's I
Ruining
don't
my
want to know why you know
relationship.
that.
Whoever that is, ruining my relationship. I mean, I'm gonna look into the study the Fanatic presents, and I'm merely presenting an opinion, and I see why you would prefer data over that, but I'm so excited to argue because early the basement generation had me a little tight. Wake the Beast, I disagreed with this, but I'm really ready to argue about this one. Do you have a response perhaps to the objection of? I was trying to search the fatherhood effect, and I just looked at a bunch of like silly parenting programs. So maybe you could post a link as well. I'm not familiar with the fatherhood effect or studies around that.
Yes, interacting with your own child as a man has shown to increase the cognitive scoring of 3-year-olds. If a man just interacts with his child around the age of 1 month, by the age of 3, they're scoring significantly higher than their peers who did not have fathers. But even before the child is conceived, the decisions and the choices of the father matter. Men who are prone to alcoholism tend to produce lower quality sperm, which contributes to a higher likelihood of having heart disease in children. So again, just looking at the data, it's really conclusive that the role of the father, even prior to the child being conceived, matter. But I just want to ask you, Andre.
Yeah.
If I heard you right, you're a father yourself, correct?
I am.
Okay. Have you always felt that your place in your child's life was unnecessary, or did something happen to change that opinion?
Yeah, that's pretty silly. Have I always felt that my place and I've always felt that my gender didn't matter in raising my child. But I mean, I guess that's fair of you to say. Have you always felt that men just sprinkle attention on children and they do well, or do you think women also have that effect? Do you think that parents, regardless of gender, perhaps have positive outcomes on the development, especially when they're in that 3-year range? This is like, I mean, we could do this. But I just don't think it bodes well. I'd love to see the fatherhood. I mean, you're talking about data. I'd love to see it as well. Did you post yours in the
Certainly.
Discord?
I'll be sure to post that for you in the Discord. But I just want to say real quick that when we take a look at children who have fathers, what is this father to the child? You are your child's first interaction with an authority figure. What you're really providing is a role to be duplicated by your sons and a role to be sought and respected by your daughters. You understand? As a man, you have wide shoulders. You have a particular method and approach to doing things, and your son needs a model to show him how to put that potential to good use.
Right.
And there's no way a woman can duplicate that. And the reason
Good
why
point.
is because the same expectations are not laid upon women as they are going to be laid upon your son.
So without
So your
broad
son
shoulders,
cannot. Go ahead. Go ahead.
If my shoulders weren't so broad, which they are, thank you for noticing. But if they weren't, this would affect my ability to parent my child if I wasn't a man. I'm so confused by this. I think I agree with you. I think your involvement in your child's life and you being the first one there to sort of chaperone how they experience the world is so important. And I couldn't agree with you anymore. But I certainly think that we need to be talking about lesbian households with 3 women in them and how they're better than male-female
True.
households. I think 3 parents is better than 2. I think 4 parents, poly relationships
Co-parenting
with
is
4
based.
people is probably communal parenting, as you said, Empress, is probably far superior to male-female parenting. I think these gender roles are pretty antiquated, but I don't disagree with you because I think we both think that parenting is important. I just don't think that the gender or the size of the shoulders is necessarily super important to the rearing
Well,
of a
the
child.
size of your shoulders was just a reference to the fact that you are a male
saw
who has
me?
experienced puberty. I was not speaking to the literal width of your shoulders.
Oh,
I did not intend for you to take that so literally.
My
But
bad.
by virtue of your wider shoulders, you are given and assigned a different amount of social weight than your female peers. And your male children need a model in demonstrating how to wield that effectively.
I don't think that's a good idea to give more social weight to broad shoulders. And I think we should teach our children to not give social weight to physical attributes like shoulders and give more social weight perhaps to the content of people's character. But again, this is a parenting thing. Everybody else wants to hop in. I'll be quiet. I do still disagree though.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah.
By the way, Fanatic, I linked a study
go
in
ahead, Chris.
chat.
Look,
I know data going back to
Chris,
94.
Chris, going. Let's go, Chris.
Hang on.
Yeah, I know when we start having these conversations, people start to get defensive and start thinking that you're saying like we should just start ripping fathers from the homes. We don't need them, throw them out. So let's don't not encourage men to be fathers. No, like encourage men to be fathers, give them the opportunity to do so, right? Just encourage them to be good fathers and like good men, and like just good people in general. We need good mothers too. So like this idea that like I don't know this idea that you somehow raise the power level of your kids just by being there is not true. Like you can be a father and be like just because you have interactions with your kids doesn't mean that they're going to be good outcomes. And that like 100% of the time it's just like depending on the person you are, you don't have to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. You can be toxic and like instill some toxic things into your kids and like they grow up to be terrible people. I think we should encourage people to be good parents, no matter your gender, and we should help people with the financial stability. I think that's where the main issues come in is financial stability. Like no matter if you're a single father or single mother, not having the support there with you can cause you to not be able to be there with your child. You have to work a lot more. So and your child has to be in daycares. There has to be a nanny. Unless you have some support to like lets you stay home, of course you can be a single parent and still be effective. But a lot of times that isn't the case. So I just think we should just like get away from the idea that we're saying that fathers like shouldn't be there. We're not saying that. We're saying it's just not necessary. If something's going on with your kid and they need something, as a parent, you should recognize it and try to figure out other ways to bring support, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a father. It can be a friend and like a partner of the same sex group.
Well, hold on though. I feel like this is almost like it's like you're infantilizing our argument because, like, yes, the
I'm still
idea
waiting on
is
your data, by the way.
on whose?
I've linked mine. You
I linked
You
it.
claim that you had studies on this.
In
so
voice chat, I linked it in voice. I linked it in
you
voice chat a
recommend.
long. I linked it in voice chat a long time ago.
Yeah, it's in voice chat and
It's been there for a very long time. It's there. Anyway, so yeah, I think
I'm
you're
looking at it
infantilizing our
right
argument.
there.
Yeah, it's there. So why are you waiting for it? All right, so what you're linking, it's really crazy because like you're infantilizing an argument the second you start like making it sound like we're saying that any father in any circumstance is going to be like that's not what we're saying. What like I think the idea is pretty clearly that like simply a father in the home that they have better outcomes. Now, clearly, if you have a piss poor father with piss poor parenting, you're not going to get the same results, right? And I would never encourage someone to stay in an abusive relationship or something just because having a man is just gonna fix everything. Like that's kind of absurd. But yeah, like I think the general just concept is that having a father in the home, like there are God knows how many statistics that intact parents do better with their children. That the numbers are just there for that. So I don't even understand why there would be any pushback on that.
All right, so I was able to actually look into this study a little bit, like this the new family structure study conducted by Mark what's his name? Regnerus in 2012. So I was like really interested in this study because it contradicts almost all of the research that I've looked at. I thought it was super interesting, and apparently all of the others, all of their peers thought it was interesting too, because in 2012 the study was audited and failed peer review, and was also restudied twice, and it found to have extreme lacking errors. Here, I can post it in the VC. It was they went over it twice in 2015 twice, and it failed both times. And going back through the data twice, found that there was no significant difference between heterosexual and homosexual couples when they both are in the same household and have the same family structures.
Sweet. I'm looking at that now.
Go ahead, Lyra.
All right, so I got to push back on what Wake the Beast said a little bit earlier. So a huge issue that I have whenever topics like this come up about like the importance of having a father, how you need to have the father there in the family. These conversations have a tendency to lend themselves over to damn near misogyny and sexism. About like why, oh, well, yeah, you can have a parent, but you need to have a father. You have to have a father. And like as I mentioned earlier, clearly if you're talking about a child who grew up with two parents and then one parent steps out, okay, yeah, they're gonna miss the father figure because they had one and now they don't have one. But like it's way more important that you have parents that are there to support the child, whatever gender that they are, because we talked about the fathering effect, really just the parenting effect. What can a male parent teach a child that a female parent simply just literally impossibly cannot? I mean, obviously there are things that a cis man can teach someone that a cis woman can't. I mean, like how to pee standing up. I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. So things like that, yeah. But
Too
like
crazy.
you could have a male. I'm sorry, that's the only example I can come to my head with what a cis parent can teach a child that a woman cannot. But like you can teach a child to be successful, to have a huge character, to maintain financial stability. There are things that you can teach a child that you don't have to get from a particular sex. So like why is so much? Obviously both mothers and fathers are important, so are non-binary parents, but what's the most important thing about them is that they're there to support the child, that they have an ability and a willingness to support their child both mentally, financially, socially, and spiritually. So what's so special about a male parent, a cis male parent at that?
Okay, look, first of all, you don't have the experience of missing the bowl, right? This is a thing that happens, all right? So I'm gonna tell you, like, it's actually
Maybe
not
it
so
happens
simple.
to you.
If I had a father to literally guide me and how to aim, maybe it wouldn't have happened, but I don't know. All right.
My mom put Cheerios in the toilet. I was like, you gotta hit those, and I was like, oh shit! It was
Oh my
brilliant. It
God.
worked. Super effective.
Hashtag girls get it
I
done.
don't wish to get anecdotal,
By the way,
but
apparently they have
I'll
tools for
respond to your question, Lyra, with something I learned as a father. My wife and I have very different relationships with my son. My son depends on his mother to take care of him, but he depends on his father to have fun. It's a very different relationship we have with them. And this has produced different feelings in me and my wife regarding our son. First and foremost, my son bonded with my wife first. He grew inside of her for 9 months after I gave my DNA data. My job was finished until he was born, at which point I was allowed to bond with him physically. But despite this, as I was mentioning before about my son and my wife having different relationships, because my wife is so closely bound to him, there are certain things that she just can't stand to watch him do. She can't stand to watch him stand on top of tall shelves. She can't stand to watch him be lifted high above the air and spun around. And likely when it's time for him to drive, she's not going to be able to stand that either, because she has different protective instincts. Now, as a male, because I have higher levels of testosterone, I'm going to be more willing to accept risks on behalf of not just me, but on my son. So when me and my son are together, I allow him to experiment more than his mother ever could, just by virtue of that maternal bond and the paternal one, and the differences there in the level of attachment and protective instinct. That's just one way to answer your question.
Yeah. So my response to that, so you mentioned like how your child has a very different, I guess, mood to the relationship between you, his father, and well, I should say his, but you, their father, and their mother. And like I mean, like,
Indubitably.
obviously this is something that, a lot of times like you go to your mom when you need something, then your dad is for fun. And like heteronormativity, if you will, like oftentimes you're gonna have women carry themselves a lot differently than men do. However, my response to that is like the relationship that you just described, you could replicate that with 2 women and 2 men. You don't have to have a father to be the fun person in a relationship. Like, it's just as easily that the mom could be the fun person and the dad could be the overprotective one. And you could have, like, with 2 lesbian moms, one mom could be the fun one and one mom could be the overprotective one. So there's still, even in the case that you just described, I mean, yes, women have a tendency to carry themselves differently from men, but like as we know, like the lines between gender and sex are so blurred, and like honestly, in a lot of cases, it's like as long as the child has been supported, they really don't matter in the long run of things. Like, yeah, there are some differences, but like even that can be replicated with parents of either gender. So even then, it's like
I have to ask an obvious question, Lyra. Why would you replicate a father if a child already has one?
Well,
it's not about replicating a father. It's just that you can have
But
the fun parent
you
and
just
the
said it can be
overprotective parent.
replicated. If I have a dad, why not just have my dad as opposed to trying to find those same
Well, I
results
say it could be
in someone
replicated
else?
because you
If
represented
you
it
have a
as
dad.
it's like you can only get this type of relationship if you have a father. And I said, no, you can replicate that same result to say that like you don't need to have a father in order to have that type of relationship for a child. That's why I said to replicate it. But it's less about replicating. It's more replicating a father figure. It's more about replicating a parental figure that is willing to teach your child to, have fun and take risks sometimes. And you don't need a man to do that.
That's all very nice, Lyra, and it's all very coherent. The only problem is that the data doesn't support you, Mamselle.
What data? What is the one thing a father can do that a mother cannot? I'm lost on this. What's the thing? It's
I just explained it to
testosterone. It's
Lyra.
shoulders. I don't think you did. You said the data, but what does the data say? What is the thing that a dad can do that a mom can, or a non-binary?
Like,
I don't-
possibly cannot.
I don't know. Listen, I don't know what data. Wake the Beast has. But when you're looking at data, especially when you're talking about sociological things, it's not about what's literally incapable of being done. By that definition, we would say that there's no such thing as systemic oppression, because it's not that black people aren't capable of succeeding, right? Like that's not how we would define systemic oppression. The idea basically boils around the idea of what's likely, what tends to happen more. When you're looking at data, it's to determine the outcomes, not necessarily about what's possible. I mean, I feel like one of the largest determining factors for whether or not a woman will stay in poverty is if she's a single mother. A single black mother, the likelihood of them remaining in poverty is insane. For young teen single black mothers, it's incredibly high, right? But my sister is like a hyper outlier, right? She's done extremely well for herself. She's been working since she was 16. She does, good. She makes good money, so on and so forth. So just because there's an outlier doesn't mean that like the original data is wrong. So it's not about what not that there's no individual thing I would think that a father can do that a mother is incapable of doing. But I would say that like the absence of a father is likely to have effects because children tend to respond better when they have two stable figures, right? It's like
And if those figures are both women, I'm still not, I'm
yeah.
not
But I guess it's all up to the data in that. It's all up to the data in that case, and it seems like what's his name has provided some data that counters the other data that I've seen.
Sure.
I'm not the person that ran the study, but if the data is that the original study was wrong, and the data supports that, like there's no correlation between these things, I'm totally open to that too. Like I'm just gonna go with whatever the data says in that.
sure. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to look at it. I mean, I appreciate you, Fantique. But I just wanted to make sure that I was right as well. When it comes to like once again, like I want to make sure that homosexual couples can do just as well when it comes to taking care of children as heterosexual couples if they're both equally there taking care of the kid, financially supporting the kid. They can do all of that. You can get everything that you need with a very well-rounded social structure with a kid that you should be having anyways. As long as two parents are there to take care of them, that's all you need. And you can easily raise a kid.
So
And I mean,
I
like
think-
with
I wanted to
Go ahead.
ask Wake the Beast a question. If a parent, right, if a male parent transitions to becoming female, in the middle of raising their child, would you think that would affect anything? Would they be less able to parent when they're transitioning
I mean,
to
they'd
become a
probably be
woman?
better parents.
When you say transition to female, can you be more specific?
To go.
Or do you mean
So
just changing their gender expression?
Yeah, well, yes, and then maybe also physically changing their bodies, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, like however, the people transition on a scale, right? So wherever they are on that scale, I guess if you want to make disambiguate between those, that's fine. But does it make a difference?
I don't think we're in agreement. I don't think we're in agreement, Mr. Case, that men and women can change their biological sex. That might be a point of contention.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
That's a
Wait,
tough
so
one.
are you
That's also-
arguing that like the men's just like natural aura around them just makes the kids better? Like, so I would imagine that your argument would be like the social, like political, the social like niche that the father figure has is what has an effect on the kid. But are you saying just like the state of his like massive nuts just emanating masculinity, just like
or even better,
that's what helps the
what
kid?
about two dads? Is two dads better than one? No.
Does the kid
mom?
become super good? Is that why Jeff Bezos has so much money? Because he was around. He was like the quartering. He had like 6 gay dads.
Four dads?
Yeah.
So
How
what
many
was your
dads-
question?
How many dads does it take to change a light bulb? I want to say also it's Mr. Fanatic and PrimeCayes, just so we're clear. Mr. Fanatic, PrimeCayes, but
Was there a fanatique there?
yeah. Shark called Fanatic, Fantique, and Beast.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Kai's,
sorry.
Kayes. It's Kai's,
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
you're good.
When you say case two, I understand.
Yeah, me too. I got it wrong.
Yeah, correct me. I'm horrible with names.
It won't.
But yeah. So
Optimal
does
number of
it?
dads?
Do you think then that would hurt to not have a? Well, actually, I think that question's already been answered. So I'll go down a different path.
Well, I can come as close. I think I can come close to maybe answering your question and Shark Zero's question at the same time. But correct me if I'm leaving something out. What I mean to say this is that one component of being a parent is modeling roles for your child. And if your child is going to be a man in society, what better than to have a male role model to give him an idea of what those social expectations are going to be of him when he becomes an adult?
Okay, but my question would be, so what if the household would be like let's say a really femboy dad and super dommy mom like Lady Domitresque. She's 9 feet tall. She's massive. She's super masculine. And then his dad is just like a tiny femboy twink who takes on like feminine roles. Is that like more of a, would that be okay if like the woman takes on the more like masculine roles and the man takes on, or the male takes on the more feminine roles?
Does parenting have gendered roles?
Yeah,
Like,
and it's so
does
weird. I'm
parenting
listening.
have to have gendered roles?
Dommy mommy. I just learned this. I like that a lot.
Mommy, mommy.
Like, I think it's kind of weird that we gender attributes associated with parenting. Maybe that's
Yes.
just
What is? Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Wait, that's not weird at all. A lot of these
think
terms,
it's
a
a
lot
little
of these,
bit weird,
it's not even a little bit. So a lot of these things, the way we've even arrived there, a lot of times is based on like biological things, right? Like a lot of the gendered roles we have, because gender, a lot of times, very often, was tied historically has been tied to sex in many cases. Obviously, we're moving away from that now, but typically the roles and expectations that society placed on people were based on those things. The reason why we expected women to stay at home, because for some women, pregnancy, delivery can be pretty catastrophic, such that they need to be at home. So then women, it made sense for women to be more with. A lot of times when women like give birth, sometimes there can be weeks before they are even able
Yeah,
to
of
like get
course.
back whatever.
No
So
one's
because
saying
of that,
that.
right? I don't know why you question what then, because that's what I was talking about.
I'm just
But in
wondering what
any
this has
case,
to
a
do with
lot of
women's
times,
role in
I'm
the
answering the
house.
question. If you can let me finish. So what's happening is, in a lot of these cases, just if you listen for just a second, maybe I'll get to a point. So a lot of times, what ends up happening is, in these specific situations, you find that very often women were more likely to stay at home, and women were thought to be caretakers because for a big portion of the time, women were gonna have to be home taking care of the children, like once they gave birth. So it made sense for that to happen at that point in time. Obviously, we've gotten better with medical, so that now women can be home, whatever. There was a reason why fathers didn't get paternity leave as much as women got maternity leave, right? There was a reason for that. It made all the sense in the world. There's a reason that has a lot to do with why the gender gap is the way it is. That's why a lot of pressure has been placed to put on a male when it came back in the day. Why there was so much pressure put on males for, when it came to like earning and things like that. Because specifically, women were going to be spending a lot of time if they were having children. Women would spend a lot more time at home with the children during the nursing experience. If they had children in families, women were going to be home nursing children more frequently. There was going to be a required amount of time if they have children, not expected. It was required biologically.
Why doesn't
It was
the woman
required.
work
It was
and the
required.
father
It
do
was
it?
required.
This
It
is what
was
you're missing.
required. It was required. It was required biologically. If you let me finish the sentence, you can respond as much as you want to. It was required biologically. If you let me finish the sentence, then you can respond. I don't know what it is with people like this. Just let me finish the sentence, and then you can go. Anyway, it was required biologically in a lot of these circumstances that women were going to, if they were nursing and things like that, because of the recovery required within pregnancy, there were plenty of reasons why women end up having to stay home. So with all that being said, it makes sense how we got to these gender roles. The thing is, as times change, as technology changes, as our abilities change, then those things can end up being modified. So I don't know. A lot of this was biologically divined.
So you would agree that now it's
You
considered
mean it was
weird.
defined by people associating those roles because of biological features? This doesn't explain how like we have associations with masculinity and femininity roles in the modern sense. I think my statement stands that that's still weird that we associate.
There are also economic
I don't think it's
factors
weird.
to consider.
Right, exactly. That's what I was about to get at. There's economic factors that lend
When
towards
you
that as
think
well,
about
that
the-
directly force these positions in terms of labor in the household, division of labor in the household.
Mhm.
So like,
I
there's
would
a lot
say
of
that probably
that have
began in
nothing
West.
to do with like
Sorry,
biological
go ahead.
origin, and what you described sounds almost entirely social projection.
You're telling me
I
my
don't
mom
know.
isn't socially programmed to make me tendies?
Chickens are socially programmed to give you
No, I would say that your mom would probably be home, like during the time if you guys had a stable household in which you had a mother and a father, and you
For a
guys they were
period
both
of
and they were both required. Yo, you got to stop interjecting
Yeah.
so I can finish the sentence, or else I'm just gonna give up. Like this is actually ridiculous. I'll just mute you.
Yeah.
Stop. Anyway, so the point is, yeah, there were plenty of situations where it made all the sense in the world. Where if you had a double working, if you had, even in the cases of like double working households, in those cases during the time like when they were having children, there was a portion of time that a mother necessarily had to not be at work. Whereas for the father, a father can continue to produce children as much as he wants to and never have to take a day off of work. Obviously, we recognize that it's beneficial for a father to be home with his wife in order to like help her during the recovery process, help her like with the children during the beginning stages where it's incredibly important. But that these were things that happened necessarily biologically. This isn't about social projection. Some of these things were literal biological requirements. If a man was able to produce a
Being
child,
caring is
if
not
if a man
biological requirement.
if a man was able to produce a child, it would make all the sense in the world for then at that point for men to becoming staying home while women went to work. But that's just not the way it worked at the time.
So
I mean, like,
None of
I
this,
don't
none
know
of
why
this
you guys
is a
are
response
arguing.
to what I
Because
said at all.
honestly,
I said
Empress
attributing
respond.
gender to certain specific social roles is weird. And you're saying, well, women had to stay at home for a while, therefore it makes total sense to project these attributes onto those roles. You understand that this makes literally no sense as an explanation of what I said, right?
It only makes no sense if you're literally going to try your best to just ignore everything that I said. But yeah, I think everything I said stands, so I'll just stick by that.
None of what you said explains why we have biological origins for associations with certain traits associated with parenthood.
That's
Okay.
Like
If
being
if you
nurturing.
if everything
You can
I
be a
explain
non-nurturing mother. Many people are non-nurturing mothers.
if everything I explained did not make any sense to you, then the error lies
No, it
in
made
your
perfect
ability to
sense as a
comprehend. You just
non-explanation.
sure. If you listen, you can say that all you want to. I'm pretty sure everyone else understood.
Hey, Empress, could I ask?
I-
So what? So
so
what you're
let's go,
asking?
sorry, let's go to Lyra, and then we'll go to Shark. Then I also want to give Wake the Beast a chance to talk because a lot of stuff was directed towards them, and they didn't get a chance to respond to any of it. So Lyra, Shark, then Wake the Beast. Okay.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't know why you two are at such odds with this. Fanatic is only pointing out, like, the origins of these gender roles and why they exist, and like pointing out why it's not weird to bring up gender roles now, because I mean, obviously they existed for many, many years, and there are multiple reasons as to why they existed, for better or for worse. And Empress was only pointing out, like, hey, it makes no sense to continue to use those these same requirements because of how much things have changed. Like, obviously gender roles, while they existed for many, many years, now they're not quite so important. So I don't know why you two are arguing. You're kind of saying both of you are correct in a way. So in any case, I think it's much more productive to the conversation to go back to Wake the Beast's reply to the first question. Because honestly, you guys aren't really in disagreement. Fanatic is only explaining the history of gender roles, and Empress is saying, hey, it makes no sense to use gender roles
But he's
now,
saying
which
it
is
makes
also
them
correct.
biological in origin. Like he's attributing it to the biology, not to the social structures that were built around them.
Okay.
Well,
So social in
That's my
origin, but
problem.
still.
I
Sure,
think
sure,
it's
that's fine.
both, though.
But not a huge disagreement. Like, you're gonna address Wake the Beast or his response?
Oh,
you
well,
weren't gonna address
we
it?
never got
Saying
to
that
respond
behavioral
to the
gender
first
traits
question
is
that was
biological
asked.
is pretty weird to me. But okay, we can leave it.
Sure, I mean, if Wake the Beast hasn't been able to respond, I'd like to let them respond.
okay. Yeah, Wake the Beast. You have the floor.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Certainly. I want to respond to something that Empress said about the biological origins of gendered roles. I think in the time we have, I can make an attempt to maybe make that connection. Let's go back 80,000 years ago when our species was comprised of bands of human beings, no less than 2 individuals, grouped together in interdependent tribes that were dependent on each other for survival, but loosely in competition for resources. One tribe has 10 people, 5 males, 5 females. Tribe number 2 has the same sexual composition, 5 males, 5 females. Work has to be done. There are domestic tasks, and there are tasks that require one to go out and leave the domicile. Now, tribe number 1 is only concerned about getting people in the job where they would be best suited. And since hunting and gathering requires superior upper body strength to throw the spear and to carry heavier objects like carcasses and cuts of meat, they assign all hunting positions to males, and all domestic tasks like tending to children, sewing and cooking are assigned to women. Now, the second tribe does something different. They're not concerned about the best role for the best person. They're concerned about equal access to various roles. So in this tribe, you have 3 women who are assigned to roles involving hunting and only 2 males. One day, a horrible accident befalls both tribes. Both teams lose 3 members of their hunting party. Tribe number 1 loses no females because they didn't risk them in positions like hunting. So that means that next year they can have 5 fresh babies to fill out the numbers of their tribe. Tribe number 2, on the other hand, lost 3 females because they were concerned about giving them equal access to opportunities. Now they can, at best, they can only have 2 children between now and the next 9 months. On a long enough timeline, I think it becomes clear that Tribe 1 is going to outbreed Tribe 2, who merely is not going to be able to maintain the sufficient numbers and requisite wombs to replicate fast enough. This is why the very measure of society has been how well we take care of women and children. And so what that has meant throughout time is placing them in positions as far away from danger as possible. This was exacerbated by the Industrial Revolution that monetized the work that men did outside the home while not doing the same for the work women did inside of the home. So that's the best I can do in the time we have provided to give you a biological origin to maybe some of the more gendered roles we see in society today.
Lyra,
That's not
I
biological.
hope you're prepared next year to provide a fresh baby.
That was for Empress, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the bottom line is this, right? I think you have a gross misunderstanding of hunter-gatherer society and early humans. One, the main way that we like hunted was threefold, right? Through entrapment, right? And through wearing large prey down. So I don't know why you're getting this idea that it was highly dangerous for humans to be hunting. We had both men and women hunting. We had both men and women gathering, right? That's why they were called hunter-gatherers. Men and women filled both roles, which was one of the things that was what made humans a successful species, right? That we had men and women filling these roles together, right? That you didn't necessarily have women being exclusively at home. What you would often see is that recent mothers, right, would complete certain tasks with children, right? And then eventually they would either return to the tasks that they had done previously, right? Or unfortunately, you had a high infant mortality rate, and they would be that child would be reared by other of that collective mother group, while both men and women alike went out and hunted and gathered. This is also the group that would make things like clothes, right? This is also the group that would make things like traps that would be used, right, by those men and women during the hunting and gathering sessions, right? If they used traps in that particular area of society. It depends on whether they were hunting small game or big game. But it's such a gross, inaccurate misrepresentation of early human society, particularly on the parenting front. I don't even know what to say.
Okay, really quickly, can I just say something really quickly?
And the point was
wait.
difficult tasks were given to women, and I suppose you could take that position. But if your tribe was in competition with mine, Empress, I'm going to outbreed you, friend.
Okay,
No,
really quickly. Let me just say something really quick.
Apparently they just didn't listen.
Okay, Empress, no.
You're
So,
extinct.
this is that thing that happens. Notice that you said something, and even though it was really stupid, I just let you finish instead of just C-lining and interjecting every few seconds. Try to do that. So, in this case, you literally just said something that was just completely not true. Of course I do. Yeah, your take was just as whatever. So anyway, so here I just read something really quickly. I just asked the question: were women hunter-gatherers? And it says, though not every hunter-gatherer population pinpoint females to gathering and males to hunting, most notably the Ada and the Juhansai, the norm of most populations, most current populations divide the role of labor in this manner. It has been something that has happened historically, and clearly it's something that we do now. So please, stop. I don't know.
What do you mean we do it now? Wait, what do you mean we do it now?
I want to hop in. I don't get what.
Andre.
But you first. Oh, no, me.
Well,
Okay, then. I don't understand why this. What does this appeal to nature or tradition have to do with current parenting? I can teach my son how to use Uber Eats. So can his mom. What? I don't understand. We're really far away from parenting.
I'm not really sure what to be said.
I must concede that I do not know. I don't know what tribes did. I have no idea. And perhaps, that makes me a bad parent, but I don't understand how it relates to modern parenting and what men and women, can't equally do. I'm far removed from the conversation, and please bring me back to it. Or maybe not. Or
It's not. So again, it's not about what men and women can't do, but it does make sense in for example, whenever we look at pay gaps and things like that, sometimes one of the contributing factors towards the pay gap is literally the simple fact that the woman literally has to take a certain amount of time off like during pregnancy. Like it has to happen. So like those things, and for a portion of time, like when the baby is first born, there's are specific benefits that come to women when that come to the baby specifically. Like we know the outcomes of children who end up breastfeeding as opposed to those outcomes are significantly better. So if they're going to be constantly breastfeeding the entire time, like obviously we have ways of pumping and things like that, which are not as beneficial because there are also extra complications with that. But there are ways that we're trying our best to modify technology in ways to allow women to continue to work as much as they do and still provide nursing and all of those things, right? But the thing is, biologically, these things weren't always there. Biologically, these things weren't always there, and so because of that, it made all the sense in the world why there would be these differences because like we didn't have the ability, we couldn't have done it.
But I literally explained how hunter-gatherer society did it already. You're saying we didn't have the ability. We recognize these things, and women would become part of effectively what would be a mother class for a period of time. Temporarily.
Yeah, super quickly, and I'll hop back out. The U.S. and Papua New Guinea are the only countries that don't provide paid maternity leave. We should provide paid maternity leave for both parents and then alleviate this, right? You don't have to work. Both parents take time off. We do. America provides paid paternity.
Well, it depends. Cause obviously, our union works. It's not federally mandated, but it happens in California at like large amounts, and it happens at a large amount of states in the union. It happens. Paternity leave is a thing in a large portion of them.
I think
for
both
parents,
parents.
maternity and paternity in a large amount of states. Okay. Yeah.
And I think provided this solution, both parents can stay home, both parents can work, two women can work too. Yeah, like I think this is the solution. I don't think we have to go back to hunter-gatherer. I think we move forward to like leave from work and then we're good. Everybody stays home.
This came up because we said that the current gender roles in parenting are weird. And Fanatic pushed back on that. I'd say, like, just because there's a historical precedent for something doesn't mean
not just historical.
No, look, it's not biological. That's societal. This is how we've structured our societies that we've done that, right? It's not something in our biology that we decided to use more men to do these things, right? We just decided as a society, like those hunter-gatherers decided as a society, that's how they wanted to operate. It wasn't in their nature, right? It was a smart decision to do. And just like now, if it was the same, right? We still have those same things, right? We still have those same biological like impulses, like to go out and hunt deer and stuff and feed our kids and while moms stay home. That's not biology. Right, the societal, and society changes, which changes those norms. We no longer need those gender roles, and the idea of those gender roles are weird now. Like it really was always weird, but there was a necessity to them at one point. But there's no longer that necessity. It's weird. We shouldn't have them.
Yeah. Also, like most hunter-gatherer societies mostly gathered. Thank you. They mostly gathered more than hunted, and that was like a big community thing. Everyone picked berry together. Not just women have the pickberry gene. I want to have the pickberry gene too. I think I'm very good at it actually. So it can have some like biological sort of like pretext to it. There's like a puppet, a hand puppet shadow like of it like there that we build society off of. But it's not like it doesn't have to be like super concrete. And once again, like we can with those things being known, we can easily change some of those things. Like obviously, we sometimes we put the baby in the woman, and then she has to take time off to push out the baby. This happens sometimes. So they're going to have to take time off a lot of the times because it's really hard to work when you're pushing out baby. I wouldn't know personally. I have a mom though. I could ask her sometime. But I do think separating some of these.
Underestimate women. I think get them the iPad. I think they can knock it out. Right? Women can do anything.
You got a point.
I'm just saying.
You got a point.
Right? Let's not underestimate them. Go ahead.
That's true. So I think we can easily like separate some of these things from like, from monkey days. I do love the monkey days, but we can't go back just yet. These things can be separated, and I do think that we can have more men take on more like sort of homey roles, and also like once again back to the question, men can take on more feminine roles and women can take on more masculine roles, and then that doesn't affect the child negatively as long as they both love, care, and support that kid. At the very least, too.
Lyra.
Right. So here's the thing that like the whole top row and like me are on. It's like, okay, like clearly there are like various reasons why gender roles exist. Whether like I think that they're both biological and at least in origin, biologically and socially charged. Because like clearly, I mean, if we're talking about the days of monkey, as Shark put it, like it was women, who had the children. And clearly that has an effect on like both the social standing and, financial access and, movability of women. But like those are the days of monkey. We're now in 21st century. And it's not even just women who have children anymore. So it's like, while like okay these gender roles existed and like as Chris put it that it was a precedent for the past, however in modern times it's just so much different. It's so much different. So it's like there's really no use in going like hard into like what did they do in the hunter gatherer days when comparing it to what we do now, because obviously their situation, their environment was very different than what we have now. We don't have all of these obstacles, and we aren't really forced to go down to like the bare raw. Okay, women make babies, men go get food. We don't have to prescribe to that anymore. Also, I would urge caution when talking about like the days of monkey and hunter gatherers and Neanderthal eras of humans anyway, because a lot of times the studies that go into their social structures lends itself over to more theoretical than quantitative. Because I mean, you could do as much looking at the walls on the murals and as much as you want. You can't interview a Neanderthal to truly find out. So blending so much into the conversation on gender roles and how biologically sound they are, it's not a very good foundation to go on, because even those studies are mostly theoretical. And even at the very least, it's like that was the past. We're in today. They don't matter today.
Andre, so I want to turn this around because a lot of this attention has been on Fanatic and our friend Wake here, as to like why they think the way they do. But to you, what would it take to convince you that they are correct, that a male in the household is like the most beneficial, right? A male and a female in the household is the most beneficial.
Yeah, I guess
To hear.
right. Yeah, but to be charitable, like what would be the argument? I just like I'm a dad and I bring a lot to the table. I'm a good dad, but I don't know that there's anything that I do that my son's mom couldn't do if she was just cloned. I think if there were two of her, she'd be doing a pretty good job. I understand this isn't the whole point that Fanatic and Wake the Beast are getting at, but I just like 2021, men are obsolete. Gender's obsolete. I don't know. I respect that children need multiple parents. I liked earlier when Empress was talking about how communal parenting is very effective. I think having aunts and uncles around are great, but I don't think it needs to be one aunt and one uncle. I think a bunch of aunts is probably just as effective as a bunch of uncles. I think if we're, as Lyra said, if we're loving and caring towards the children, I think I don't know if I could be convinced, but if there were a thing, so like earlier you said, how do we teach a male child, how do we teach a child with a penis to use this penis, aforementioned penis? I think it's pretty straightforward. You just hold the thing and you aim at the thing. I mean,
it wasn't
like,
for me. I had difficulty.
Right.
Oh,
okay, that's fair. Yeah, he's still hitting the toilet a little bit, but yeah, I don't know if I can be convinced, but if there were, I don't know. I guess perhaps if there was a responsibility, if it were monkey time, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I can't be convinced. Perhaps I'm like too far on this, but I don't think.
For me, I guess like it would be the same. I mean, if I was convinced that necessarily having a man in the household would be like just beneficial, period. In society
why?
right now, I'm sorry.
Why?
Wait.
Why?
If I was. Oh, sorry. If I was to be convinced of that, it would be the same way I would be convinced that being born black is pretty bad. I don't think there's anything fundamental in black people that makes it so that we have worse outcomes than white people. It's more likely societal changes. And I wouldn't like advocate for, because at the very end, like it would have to be advocating for like gay couples, like let's say like women couples to lend have to force themselves to have a man in the household somehow, or like stop being gay or something to produce like a family. But I personally, I don't think that would be the solution there. It'd be to fix like societal problems that help hold them down. I don't think that like there's anything biological that would make them incapable of raising a kid. It's more likely they get bullied and they get like the kids bullied, and it makes it them a higher likelihood of like suicidal ideation and having no friends, and like that like has more problems of them like when it comes to their schooling, and so they have like worse outcomes. Like if that was the case, which I'm not saying that it is based on the data that I've seen, but if that was the case, that would be the problem there. Just like fixing black people isn't straightening our hair and lightening our skin, fixing like these hypothetical gay couples wouldn't be in like throwing men into like just cannon shooting men into the house. For me personally.
Empress, like, what would it take to convince you?
Evidence. I have not seen significant evidence in favor of the claims that either of them have made, except insofar as single mothers, right? I completely agree with them on the single mothers issue, right? We need to support single mothers. And again, right, like I agree with what the others have said. We need to figure out ways to support these people such that they can be successful, right? I am very skeptical of the claims of necessity for gendered roles in the household, or even the gendering of roles in the household. Again, actual evidence that these things are beneficial, that these structures are necessary for childhood development. I think they're just again, they're just weird to me. They always kind of have been. Maybe that's just because I'm autistic. I have a little bit of a different perspective on things like gender, because it's just a weird thing for me. So I don't know.
Lyra?
Yes. So, like, okay, obviously I know mothers are important, fathers are important, but the reason that they're important is not so much their gender, but more so their capableness, their willingness to be able to support their children in all these facets that I mentioned. I'm sorry, I feel like a broken record, but it's because I can't push this point enough. And if you want to convince me why it is so important to have a father in the household as opposed to just another supportive parent, whether they're, whether they're trans, whether they're another woman or non-binary, why is it so important to have a father in a household as opposed to just another supportive parent in a struggling single parent household? And you have to give me like a reason, like why a father as opposed to everything else, because I have yet to hear what a father, what a male parental figure can give to their child that a woman cannot, or that a non-binary person cannot, or that a trans person cannot. I still have yet to hear that, what that is.
Okay. So I think we've hit this topic as far as we can. But unless
beating it to death.
Yeah, unless Wake the Beast or Fanatic have something else to say. With Beast, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to say something. One of my mentors once told me, he said that if a man says that he no longer needs any sex, and if a man also fails to see the impact that he has in the life of his own child, this man is dead. And you should be careful in your attempts to rehabilitate him. Because sometimes that sort of weakness is contagious. Sometimes that sort of self-destructive attitude or self-deprecative state can pass on to you if you're not careful. But here's what I'll say. There are some things about gender roles that have not changed from the beginning. And let me just give you one example of this. If you ever find yourself in any sort of public emergency, if there is a fire, if an armed gunman comes in, or if you happen to be like the unfortunate victims of the 9/11 hijackings, if armed terrorists storm the plane, you're going to learn something very important about your role as a man. People are going to expect you to do something in those situations. Now, it's not saying that women cannot do things. Of course, the women who were on those airplanes could have done everything the men did, but they didn't. And even if they did, society does not expect them to do that. So what I'm saying is this: from the beginning, men have been expected to insulate the women and the children of their societies and protect them from unnecessary harm. These expectations have not gone anywhere because to the degree to which we protect women, and children is still the measure of social success and stability.
I have
Yeah, I wouldn't.
There's
All right.
have to push
Never
back.
mind.
Asexual men are not immoral. We should not put that out in the air. That was just super cringe thing. I don't.
Go ahead, Lyra, and then Fanatic.
What does cringe mean?
Okay, so what you just brought up, Wake the Beast, about how men are, and like clear, that's the truth. Like there are a lot of like expectations that are placed on men to be the protector of their families. But do you think that it is correct to only prescribe men to this standard? Shouldn't women also be expected to protect? It's expected by society to protect their children and to be there, and if somebody robs the house, should all the pressure, or do you agree that all the pressure should be placed on the man to do it simply because he is a man, or should it be on both parents to be willing to support and protect their child? Do you agree that these gender roles, that they're required? Because I would argue that we're putting a whole lot of pressure on men. We should spread that to both men and women and non-binary. Like, why should only men be expected and certainly they are expected disproportionately by society to be the protectors of their family. But I think both parents, both genders, all genders, not both genders, all genders should be expected to protect their children. So yes, there is this expectation that is this heavy burden that is placed on men by society. But do you agree that it should be that way? Because I would say both parents should be expected to protect their child from danger.
So
Yeah.
you're asking me about my personal expectations. I'm going to contrast them to society's expectations because I'm not a representative of society. Do I feel that my wife should do everything in her power to protect my son? Absolutely. And she most certainly would. But I will be the first line of defense between danger and my family. And this is an expectation that is not laid upon my wife. If someone walked into my home and murdered me and my son, and my wife was frozen in fear and did nothing, society would not badger her for that. They would say, "You poor woman, you didn't do anything. You must have been cowering in fear at the sight of this man coming in and murdering your family." But if I lied in bed and cowered while my wife and son were killed, how would society treat me? So you're asking me if I feel it should be this way? Yes, because by and large, due to sexual dimorphism in our species, men are physically better fighters than women, and we represent the best line of defense between our women and danger. So yeah, why should the person who is best capable of fighting not be the one to fight first?
Yes,
Most
exactly.
Well, the
And
whole
who's
thing
to
and
say?
sexual dimorphism thing is nice, but there's this wonderful contraption called a gun here in
Yeah.
the lovely United States of America. You
Oh,
don't
no.
need to be a man to use a gun to protect your kids from somebody breaking in to
And
murder
who's
your family.
to
So
say
even
with
then, it's
or without a gun? Who's to say you're
sorry,
more
RJ, go
qualified?
ahead.
There are professional fighters who are women who would beat you within an inch of your life. You're not the most qualified just
These are
because of your
exceptions.
gender. No. Some are qualified, some are
What
not. So in your
percentage- go
analogy,
ahead.
no, you had an initial analogy
ahead.
about a terrorist attack on an airplane. Should the men on the plane be responsible for stopping a terrorist attack, or perhaps an air marshal, someone who's qualified for stopping an attack if they are a woman? Probably the person who is most qualified regardless of gender. And just for future reference, when someone says you're cringe,
You
means
goddamn
you're
Americans, put your
embarrassing.
guns
Usually
away.
embarrassing to yourself. I think this take is embarrassing, but I want to be your friend. I want to get high with you and hang out, but I could not disagree with you more on this. I don't understand how you think that your gender just qualifies you for shit. This isn't the case.
Well, Andre, I'm flattered by your offer of friendship, but you can never be my friend because you don't believe in yourself.
I do. I'm an exceptional parent, and I can fight, and I can bake, and I can do a million things that I think have nothing to do with my gender. And I think if you're attributing the things that you are good at to your gender, I think you're selling yourself short. And as your friend, you don't have to want to be my friend. I consider you mine. I think that you are wonderful and talented because of your life experience, because of your work, not because of the way you were born. I think this has little to do with whether you can fight or sing or dance or hang out on Twitch panels.
I think you're absolutely right, Andre. I don't think that your gender has anything to do with your lack of confidence. I think it might have something more to do with your heart condition.
What are you even saying, dude? I think you're coming after my character now. I'm very confident. I have a strong heart. What is the point, dude? I worked at a mixed martial arts gym for 8 years, and I could beat you up. But this does not mean that I am
Dude,
more or
I
less
know
of a man
women
than
who
you.
could take every man on this panel.
Yes, 100%. I've had a woman strangle me
I
before.
could take
It has,
most of the men on this panel.
I just don't know what. I don't know what confidence and heart have to do with my gender. Just be my friend.
I know you
and
don't.
accept it.
That's part of the problem.
You know I don't what? What's my problem? That I'm not confident or that I don't have a heart?
How about this, Andre? I think
Yep.
this is beyond the scope of this debate panel. Why don't you send me a message afterwards, and maybe we could talk this out?
Yeah, 100%. You let me know when you're free. I'll message you now, friend.
Oh boy.
No, I mean, I think.
But make sure you take the pill for the Goku heart virus, okay?
My heart and my. I don't know if my heart and my confidence
might be
can
a
take it,
prediction
but
of
I'm
the
gonna
future,
send
you
you a
never know.
message anyway.
If your argument is just that men should be the ones to always jump in front of the bullet first because we big and chunky, and that's just like that's just like what biology do. I don't know what the social expectation comes in, what that has anything to do with it, because we could always change that. That's not something that we necessarily need. I do think that women should also have the same exact expectation to, like, I don't know, protect your house, whether that be to cower in fear or jump or like grab your gun and start like combat rolling over your sofa. Honestly, I mean, whatever,
Shark.
whatever that may be.
So are you saying if your wife were 4 months pregnant or were in the midst of menstruation, you would expect her to jump out of bed and confront the intruder before you? Is that what you're saying to me?
What does women are not always pregnant or like menstruating, for one. And I mean, if like I don't have a ute. I've never bled out of the ute. I don't know what it's like, but I mean, I would imagine like if there's like a problem going on in the house and some dude is in there trying to murder us and eat my kid, I would really hope that she grabs the gun that we have and she's out there with me. She's my wife. She's my better half. No, look, I would absolutely expect her to try to protect the house. If both my legs and both my arms and my rib cage and my skull was broken and I'm sitting there in a full body cast and she's the only one to like grab the gun and do anything, yes, I would absolutely. But I don't think that makes them completely incapable of doing anything. They're just not walking meat bags without any expectation.
Shark,
of like helping.
You're straw manning me to the point to completely
okay. So wait, I'm being hyperbolic. Listen, I understand.
Wait, you would be to watch the VOD. Just watch the VOD. I think you'll have a better take on what I'm saying.
Incredible. I think that women should have the same expectation as men when it comes to protecting other people, themselves, their family, and their house.
Sure.
Okay, amazing. Oh boy. So many highlight moments here already.
I'm so sorry I keep.
No, it's fine. No, and we're gonna go. Don't worry.
Like cutting out. My computer keeps shutting itself.
No problem. And don't worry. We're gonna go to you, Lyra. Make sure you have a say in this because oh boy. Let's go to Chris, and then I think Fnatic wanted to say something a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, like, just in case people didn't hear me, because most people were talking at the time. Victor B said something about men who give up on sex is something immoral about them. No, if you're asexual, you're not immoral. Also,
That's a straw man. I didn't say that. Just ask me what I said. I'll repeat it.
What did you say? You said something about men who give up on sex. What was that?
Thank you for asking. This is what I said. I said my mentor told me that if a man says he no longer has a sexual drive, he is spiritually dead, and you should be careful about your rehabilitative measures.
I mean, I can say this, right? Like, your sex drive is highly linked to testosterone. It makes you hella horny, right? This is just a fact.
That's fine. Okay, another thing is I think it's getting dangerously close to like some misogynist ideas about like how to be a man. And I think this is like what you're what you're getting at, and they're like, and I don't know, there might be some toxic underlying ideas of like what your arguments are based on. I'm not
Are you
sure.
convicting me of thought crime? Why don't you just deal with the argument, friend?
I'm not convicting your thought crowd. I'm just saying I don't see how you get to the ideas that you have any other way.
I just explained them. Watch the VOD. It'll help.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Wow. Amazing. All right, Fanatic. I want your thoughts on everything that you've heard here, and I want for the record. I tried to change it to a new topic. I was in the process.
You did try. You did try.
Switch. Okay, Mr. Fanatic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. I think this conversation is kind of weird. Like, cause like ultimately, Lyra, listen. Like, I'm not saying no one here is saying that women are completely incapable and completely helpless and completely defensive or any of those things, right? Like, the idea is, yeah, you would have a gun, and with having a gun, then that's an incredibly useful tool that, like, technology is constantly being created to offset a lot of the biological a lot of the things that have, like, derived biologically. For instance, now the fact that we have guns means, yeah, women can be a lot more defensive in these situations. Yes, there are outliers, but the outliers are not the norm. So we're not going to sit here and pretend, I hope none of us are going to sit here and pretend that, like, that the average woman is as capable as physically handling a physical altercation as the average man. Like, there are just physical changes biological advantages that males have. So, like, it's just crazy to me. Like, and again, I'm not saying that these things can't be overcame, right? Like, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with I don't know, Layla Ali. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. Like, that sounds like I'm just gonna probably get destroyed. So it's not like I'm out here just saying I'm gonna beat up every woman. But naturally, biologically, there are advantages that men have. Like, so these things are a lot of times what inform a lot of our societal expectations. If you're confronted by just a random intruder who happens to be unarmed, who's going to be more likely able to handle that? The male would be more likely able to handle those things. Now, does that mean in all cases? Of course not. Does that mean if there's a gun, it's whoever's going to be the better shooter? Like, there's just, like, I don't know. It sounds like we're so anxious about wanting to defend, like, or wanting to push against societal and, like, hardline gender roles that we're, like, ignoring the fact that there are any biological implications there. Like, Empress is literally sitting here implying that none of the societal expectations were in any way informed or shaped by biology. That's just completely ridiculous.
That's so far off from what I said that
sure.
I'm just, like, floored that you think that's what I said.
Well, yeah, honestly, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she was intentionally sea-lining the entire time as I was trying to explain some of the biological origins of our gender roles. Like, when I was explaining all that, and you felt the need to interject every 3 seconds. Maybe when I was doing that, and you felt the need to interject the entire time, then maybe it was because you just really wanted to support my ideology.
Maybe we all need to watch the VOD. Maybe we all need to watch the VOD.
And you can
stop the entire panel and watch the VOD.
You can find the VOD on youtube.com/PrimeCayes. All right. So, Lyra.
Yeah, and also don't misgender me again, preferably. Thank you.
I said she.
He said she. Stop.
You've done it multiple times. Like,
I said she. Stop.
I wouldn't ask.
I said she. Stop it. I said she. Stop.
Empress, do you go by she, they? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I said she every time. Stop it.
So
don't try that.
I mean, if you want to VOD that shit, you can VOD that shit.
Yeah, you
need to watch the
VOD. Clip it for me. I said she. I'm positive.
On youtube.com/PrimeCayes. Go ahead,
very,
Lyra.
very sorry.
The commercial cracks me up.
Okay, I'm very sorry, Fanatic. I think I heard you mention my name, but unfortunately the whole half of what you said was like kind of in and out for me. But I think I caught the last part, which was I think you said like you believe that we're getting a bit, and me are getting a little bit too entwined with, like, I guess defending the role of a woman instead of like seeing like the reasons for gender roles. Is that what you were getting at? I'm sorry, you cut out a lot for me.
Basically I was saying that, like, it's almost like we're going so far as to ignore the fact that there is any biological cause for any of the gender roles or gender expectations that we have in society now.
Okay.
All right. So my response to that is like, okay, if you take randomly, any like heterosexual couple family, and you say, okay, well, which of these parents is going to be more, have more prepared to handle an intruder, going along with that example, is probably going to be the man. But like, there are reasons for that, and I don't. they like okay, clearly the way that a woman's body, cis woman body works is very different from the, well, not very different, but like there are differences between the way a cis woman's body works as opposed to a cis man's body. But even then, oftentimes the reason why, and like the reasons for a lot of things, the gender differences in life are come down to societal. A long time ago, people used to say, "Hey, why basketball day? What success could they play into the education arena?" Of course, the reasons for that is because they didn't allow women to go to school at all. And then once you start allowing women to go to school, you start seeing more data. Like, oh, look, women can do education. Obviously, I know education is a little bit different than what we're talking about, but I'm kind of following that same line of reasoning. Like, the reason why, if you're taking a random sample size, a lot of times the men is going to be more prepared to handle an intruder alert or any kind of danger alert as opposed to the women is because men are like expected. There's this huge expectation that is placed on men to be the protector role, to be the survival role, and like I think that is like while this societal expectation is in place, I think it's very sexist and unfair to put all that pressure onto the men, because I mean, if we encourage women to take martial arts classes, attain the roles, then we can see a difference then. So like, yeah, these gender roles exist and like these societal expectations exist, but I don't agree with those societal expectations. I think they put way too much pressure on men, and more pressure should be put on both parents to be able to fulfill that role.
I have a question, just real quick for Lyra, just a follow-up question. Let's say you were in a relationship with a man. He was your partner, or let's say, for the sake of argument, he was your husband. And both of you were lying in bed together, enjoying a nice evening of rest. At 3 a.m., there's a large crash. You get out of bed, he doesn't. And you find yourself throwing hands with the grown man in the hallway. And let's say that when you turn back to see your husband, he was lying there watching and he didn't get up. Would you still feel the same way about him if he stood there and let you throw hands with that grown man?
Here's the thing, you're putting in that like it has to be a man. Am I upset in that situation that my partner was not willing to protect the household along with me? It's not because my partner is a man. It's the fact that they weren't. If I was with a woman, I would still be upset because we are both parents. We both have a responsibility to protect this household. So it's even my upset there wouldn't be because a man didn't do his job. It's because a parent didn't do their job.
Can you answer my question about the man in that example?
Yeah.
If your man sat there and let you throw hands with the grown man.
Woman too.
Right.
But I'm not asking about a woman, madam. I'm
I'd
asking about a man.
if it was a woman too.
Okay.
Well, let's
I would certainly
Yeah, I'd
be
be
disappointed in
upset,
my
but
partner
that
if he
has
didn't help
nothing
me
to do
defend
with
home.
being upset, because I'm not upset because he's a man and he did his job. I'm upset because he's a parent and didn't do their job.
Right.
Let's go.
Like
Chris and Shark. Yeah.
we are acting like society hasn't changed completely. These days, if somebody's breaking into your house without a weapon, they're assuming that you're not there, and as soon as they hear someone, they dart. If they're like coming to hurt you, they're coming to do it with a weapon. And also, women are just as capable as breaking in and wiping out your whole family as men are now with the tools that we have. These gender roles mean nothing, right? You have to prepare like regardless, right? This idea that like we keep bringing up these hypotheticals, like what if like somebody comes in and starts fighting you, like fight what man comes in unarmed and start attacks. I don't know. We both like whoever my partner is. We both get up out of bed and beat the shit out of the guy, right? You don't I would be pissed if like I had a wife or a girlfriend and like somebody breaks in and I'm fighting this dude alone and they're sitting back in their coward.
Yeah, you're getting your ass whipped.
Like what the fuck? You bet
Help
you better
me.
do
Yeah, and you
something.
ain't got no backup.
Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
love
true. Like,
Adam as a parent.
where's my girl? Like, she's supposed to be there with me, right? Whatever happened to like in sickness and in health, and we're here together for this. It's our marriage. Yeah, girl, get up, do something, please.
Like
she
not
just
my
got
gender
acrylic.
role. Good luck.
even if I'm perfectly capable of handling the person myself, I still want them there for backup, right? I still want them to be doing something. Like I like this idea that we have to keep these gender roles because of these now not so normal hypotheticals. Like No, like somebody's breaking into your house, they're not attacking you unless they have a weapon capable of like harming you that they don't have to touch you. They're coming in with a gun. Like unless
Yeah.
they're like completely out of their mind, yeah, I guess somebody's going to attack you with a knife directly. But that's not, like nobody really does that much anymore, right? Like that like
Yes.
studies show that when somebody breaks in and there's somebody in the house and they realize that they're getting out of there, right? Because they don't know if you like these days nobody knows who has a gun. Nobody wants to die for like a DV, like some like a TV or a fucking PlayStation. Like they're getting up out of there unless they think they have enough like to like protect themselves, right? Or they think you're not there, or some old person who they think is just not going to be able to do anything either way, right? Like I don't know.
I don't mean
I
to.
have some pretty
Go ahead,
valuable comics, and look, one of us not gonna leave here alive if you try to take them.
I do think yes, you can say like because I saw some people being like you didn't shark dodge the question. If the question was like someone breaks into the house and my wife is barefoot, pregnant, and menstruating, crazy, right? She has 2 youths. And do I expect her to have the same capacity to fend off like a house invader? I mean, probably not. But I feel like this is that question, just how it was phrased specifically, was in a way to show that like, oh, women eat, like that woman was in a very compromised position there, and like that's like sure, be you can menstruate and you can be pregnant, and that's endemic to like women, I guess, well, people with uteruses. I could. What if I have both of my arms broken or something, or both of my legs broken or something? What if I'm like terribly sick and I can't get up? What if I'm going through chemotherapy right now? And like there in that situation, oh, wouldn't it, then whoa, if the woman was stronger in that situation, she would be the one that would be assumed to get up. But even if I'm like in a catatonic state and I'm paralyzed from like the neck down, I don't think I like just because I'm a guy, I wouldn't have that expectation to. We are in a couple. I think that we both have this is our house. We both have the responsibility to. I come from even a traditional household, and like with like the men and women binary. But my parents always taught me that men and women work together. We're like two halves of the same coin. And I'm sorry if this coin gets breaking into, we both about to beat some ass, okay? I don't care if I'm like massive and we gotta pull like an Iron Golem and Wolverine. I gotta pick her up and fucking chuck her at him. Like, I mean, if anything, we're in this together and we need to fight together.
You mean
That's what I
Colossus?
say.
What?
Yeah, Colossus. My bad. Not Iron Golem. Yeah, Colossus.
All right.
Colossus and Wolverine.
Like two
Listen,
different
I haven't read comics in a little bit. Give me a second. Listen, I got Wolverine right.
Prime, did you want to? I thought you were going to thank the raid, but
I was going to thank the raid. Thank you, Aristocracy, for being so kind. 400 people coming in. Follow the channel. Follow the channel. You have missed some crazy ass memes. You need to watch the VOD. Follow the channel. We do good stuff. I'll do a better job with this later on. Andre.
Yeah. So
Eris
yeah,
is here.
thank you for the raid. That's cool. That's tight as fuck. I just think we're really far away. The hypotheticals have taken us really far away, and I agree with Fanatic that there are differences. I'm not trying to say that there are not. I just think that we've gotten really far away from parenting. We're now talking about like if a lion breaks into your home, but you're both eating ribs and your hands are really sticky. It's like, how about we get right back to parenting? Because this is where I think the differences are important, and I think this is where the conversation started. I don't see where these differences we can talk about this for hours about home safety and protection and like women with guns, but I think we've gotten really far removed. Maybe we do the discussion topic or the next discussion topic, or maybe Wake the Beast and I could arm wrestle. Like I'm ready for something else.
Sure.
Wait, hold on. Before we continue, I just want to make sure. So, Empress, are you willing to admit that you lied here? Because I don't like someone coming for me in the way that you just did and completely lying on me. I might disrespect people in specific ways, like by maybe yelling at them or having a really condescending tone, but I don't go around misgendering people. That hasn't happened. That's not who I am. You literally lied and said I did it multiple times. I just took the time, muted the Discord. I took the time and muted the Discord so I could actually go through my VOD to watch to see if I actually did do that, and I didn't do that. But it's not just that you said that I did it that one time; it's that you said that I did it multiple times. You didn't call it out any other time because it hasn't happened any other time, and you're a liar.
Speak of a baby about it.
I'm a baby when you're sitting here literally trying to impugn my character and mislabeling
I
me
just
as
flat out
some
said-
sort of
I've even told my
transphobe,
stream already. If I
claiming as if
misheard, I
I did
misheard,
something like
apologize.
that and I didn't do it. So it's not about me being a baby. It's about you being a baby and literally creating, fabricating complete nonsense when it didn't actually happen. And you could take a more apologetic tone after doing something like that and coming up with completely
You
unfounded
did not go back
accusations
and
like
watch
that.
the whole 2-hour
I
stream,
did.
my dude.
I went
You're
back
so
and
full
watched
of
my
shit right
interaction
now.
with you, you liar. If you want to talk about someone being full of
I
anything,
even flat out
and you
said, if you
you're
wanna
full
do
of
it after,
lies,
go back and
sitting
rewatch
here
the whole
lying
pod, we
about me
can.
like that.
That
I know I
was
wouldn't
it.
lie. I know what I'm
Okay.
doing. I didn't
Okay.
do that.
Mature about
You
it.
liar.
We can go over
She'll
the pod
You
later.
liar.
rewatch it,
Okay.
and
You
she's
liar. No, I
wrong
want to
to
just hear I'll
apologize.
rewatch it. I want to hear a more
Well,
apologetic
I
because
don't
I
appreciate
rewatched
that
it.
it's
You
immediately
liar.
I'm lying.
You
Not,
liar.
oh, maybe
You're a
you
liar.
misheard, right?
Okay,
Why are you out?
She's
Okay.
not
You're a
saying
liar.
that.
Mentality to it.
Time.
And I'm gonna start fucking
everyone
drama
shut
with you.
the
Fuck you.
fuck up. Thanks. Great.
Multiple
Wow.
times.
All right. Well.
Liar.
So, all right.
Shut the fuck up.
Okay. All right. Well. So, to my audience, what's going to happen now is we're going to move on to our open walk-on panel. All right. We're going to have more content right after this. If you're coming in on the Eris rate, again, thank you, Eris, for being so kind for rating. Follow the channel. You have missed a lot. This has been a day. You need to watch the VOD. You've missed so much.
I love it.
It's been so. I don't know what to tell you. You missed a lot. But
I did not accuse anyone of transphobia, for the record. Fuck you, chat. Never said that. Never said that.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to open walk on panel. We'll have more content after this. So the stream is not ending. I'm going to give these people an outro, but the stream is not ending. Stick around, folks. We have more content for you right after this. All right. We will start. What? Andre.
Wake the Beast, are you sticking around? You got plans tonight or what? Yeah, I mean, if Wake the Beast sticks around, I'll hang out. I want to talk about my heart and my confidence, and I've been assaulted today, and I won't stand for it. A duel between you and I. We walk 10 paces and turn. What am I supposed to do here? Plug my channel? I don't know. Who rated? Who was that? Who rated?
Aristocracy.
Aristocracy, a Twitch partner with a lot of viewers rated. You guys should all go follow them. You should follow all of these panelists. Some of them trying to hit partner. My boy Chris needs 5 follows. If 5 of you don't follow, I'm never doing this shit again. I'm never going to be on these silly political panels. You want me, you got to pay me. I don't even really need a commercial. I love you, Prime. Fanatic and Empress, I'm sorry that this has happened. I feel bummed. I want us to disagree, but not fight like that. I don't know. This is a shitty outro. I'm sorry. Somebody else go.
Okay. Well, Andre should already know what's going to happen. Is I'm going to ignore his wishes. I'm going to give him an outro any which way, right? Andre is an amazing individual who I've always been ecstatic to interact with in this space, right? One of the first people to reach out and make me feel very welcome here, right? So I'm always very grateful to Andre. They are running a great store, selling Pokemon cards, as I understand it, and blowing it up on their channel. Huge. People love this. They love it.
If I pay, you have to stop the commercial. Deal?
Yes. Oh, okay. Great. So Andre. All right. Well, there's the money. All right. Well, I'm done.
It's over.
All right.
It's over.
Ad-free
viewing. You're welcome.
Oh, there you go. There we go. Oh, man, that was good. That was good. That was a good one. All right. Andre, thank you for the 5 hot tier 1 gift subs to the channel. All right. Next, we are going to Shark. Shark, thank you for coming through. This is your first time being here. Hopefully not the last time after what just happened. Shark, thank you for stopping by.
Dude, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a fun time. I don't think I got too spicy with too many people. I just wanted to vibe, just wanted to grill a little bit. I love grilling. Thank you for having me on. Thank you everybody for the fun stream. But yeah, my name is Shark300. The word shark, the number 3, the letter O, and the word 0. In the next couple weeks, me and a couple other streamers are going to be starting a leftist, feminist, men's rights, anti-red pill series called The Antidote, and it's going to be really fun. And we're going to be doing some really cool stuff soon here in the future. You can come along, and it's going to be a fun ride. Okay. And thanks for having me on.
If we get one other donor, because Cuban Coffee was so kind as to get 5 hot tier 1 gift subs, we get another individual donor, we can start ourselves a hype train. Wouldn't that be fun? I think you'd all love that, right? So let's see if we can make that happen. Chris Cosmo, Chris, thank you as well for coming through and helping us out here. We've definitely we came in last minute, but we were happy to have you around, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on this panel. This is great. I'm glad to be here for for Andre. He was one of the first panelists who allowed me on their panel. He's great. Go check him out. Got a Pokemon cards right now. Wake the Beast is like I'm so glad to be on the panel with you, and I hope you come around more often. Yes, I disagree with a lot of what you have to say, but you offer a challenge, and I think it's fun. So I hope you stick around. Shark, I'm just meeting you. You were great this other panel. Fanatic, um, always great, always have fun. You always these things get you. You always get you heated. I hope that it didn't get you down too much. Same with you, Empress. You always been cool. I don't like that whole thing was kind of weird, but I hope you guys can get past that. And Lyra, you're always smart and intelligent. We're all gonna miss you. I hope you see you again. Again, my name is Chris Cosmo with the zero at the end. Please follow me. I think I actually got the followers. I think I'm over the count, so I think I might be able to apply. So
Let's
that is
go.
great. Thank you all. But please still follow me. I need to get to partner now. So
Okay.
yes, we're going very
Yeah,
fast.
we make dreams come true here. And so does our good friend Leah. We started that hype train and we started on a level 5 hype, on level 5 because of our good friend Leah. Thank you, Leah, for being so kind, so generous. Everyone, we're at a level 5 hype train right now, 4 minutes left on the clock. Can we get to the end of that hype train? Like, nearly all the work has been done. Can you help us out and put us over the top at this level 5 hype train? Thank you so much again for everyone who's donated. I'll do this more extensively after I'm done with all these wonderful individuals, right? But we will get back there. We have 3.5 minutes left on the clock. Can we get to the end? Please help us out. All right, Mr. Mr. Fanatic, thank you as well for coming through, bringing the usual spice. I know the audience knows what's going to happen when you're around, so we thank you for being around, buddy.
You know, Prime, I really do appreciate being here. I really do. It's great. This is a good conversation. Me and I felt so bad because I did not want to defend Wake the Beast, and I couldn't. We were on the same side somewhat on some things, and it was like, what the freak is this? But you'll find, even a blind squirrel is right. I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Broken clock is right twice a day. I felt like, well, we actually argued for the same position on some things. I don't know about our origins and how we got there. But either way, that was pretty good. I liked the panel. It was really good. I'm happy to be interacting with everybody here. Everybody except for one person. I don't think it's ever appropriate, ever, when you're losing an argument to sit here and try to character assassinate a person. And in the instance in which you do character assassinate a person, you absolutely should just be, it's not that hard to just be like, hey, you know what, I was wrong. But it would be one thing if you said, oh, you did it just there, and that would have been one thing. But then to go and say, you've done it multiple times, and I know I haven't done it multiple times. I think that's actual scumbaggery, and I think that's the same people. When someone lies about something, someone doing something incredibly heinous, I think it's incredibly harmful to the actual issues. The same way, like if someone lies about like a crime, the Jussie Smollett situation, or when someone lies about rape, I think those things are awful because what it does is it makes people less sensitive to the idea when people actually do those things. You lost the argument, that's fine. Don't lie. But either way, find me twitch.tv/Mr.
I don't have a
You
problem
can
with you
find my
being
music at
upset. I was
Spotify right
wrong,
there.
and I do have
The
a
music
problem
can
with
be
you
found.
being
The
Don't worry,
music
Empress will
can.
be able to respond. And we have 90 seconds left on the clock for this hype train. If you could help us out and finish this off, that'd be fantastic. But go ahead. Fanatic just finished. Well, don't worry, Eris. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was gonna say you can find my
Empress,
music.
Respond.
Yeah, find my music at Spotify, Mr. Under the name Fanatic. Lose the Mister. Twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatic, and you can look on any other freaking platform and Mr. Fanatic under the name Fanatic for my music, and I'll link it there in a minute.
Okay. We have half the hype train done. We have less than 90 seconds on the clock. Can we get to the end? We need your help. Help us out this hype train. We're almost done. Thank you for the very, very strong support so far. But knock us out. Almost all the hard work has been done for you. If you could help us out and to get to the end, thank you so much. We're doing a lot of content here for you. Let's go to Lyra.
All right. So thank you very much for inviting me. And like I got to be on the panel. This is my first time on the panel with both Andre, Shark, Wake the Beast, and I got to do a panel with Empress again. And I'm very happy. That I'm very happy and sad. It's very bittersweet. This is my last panel for the next 2 months, and I'm sad, and I just can't wait to come back again in August. I'm very sorry. My signal kept cutting out. I had a lot of issues. I had to end stream there so I could actually hear you guys. So I'm very sorry if anyone asked me a question I didn't respond appropriately because I didn't hear, but hopefully I did pretty good. But it was wonderful being on a panel with all of you guys and all you new folks too. You guys were very fun to talk to. I really like Andre and Shark. They have a lot of great takes. And Wake the Beast, although I disagreed with damn near everything you said, you sure sounded good saying it. I will give you that. And I love your background. It looks like I'm about to watch an Alvin Ailey performance. So I'll give you that. And like Empress, I'm very happy I was able to do an ABE with you before my hiatus. But yes, I'll be gone. If you haven't heard, I'll be gone for all summer. I'll be on a hiatus for 2 months because I'll be in the mountains of Montana doing geology work. But my last stream will be this Saturday. It's going to be a 12-hour stream, and all donations and bits will be going to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. So, I would like to see you guys for that, to support, show some solidarity with Palestine. But, very great being here. I'm very sad to be leaving, but I can't wait till I get back. And it was wonderful being on a panel with all of you guys.
Thanks so much. Lyra, of course, is lying. We know the reason why she's not coming back. We we had a lot of uterus talk today, and she simply hasn't been giving us for that. Lyra, I apologize for putting you through that. That was not where that was supposed to go. It was.
It's fine. It's fine. Listen, if I can listen to Fanatic give us a whole speech about how he likes, servicing people's wives, I can listen to everything.
White wives. Let's get that straight, all right?
Oh yeah, I forgot specifically.
But
you guys are awesome. I love being on the panel with you guys.
we're gonna miss Lyra. She's so amazing. She's just like a ray of sunshine, and so our panels will be darker without her. So we hopefully these 2 months pass very quickly. They won't, right? And of course, my family will be under threat of violence by the audience because she's not around. But thank you, seriously, Lyra. You're just one of a kind. Thank you so much. Next.
Donate to PCRF.
Next, we have Empress. Empress, thank you as well for coming through. I always feel like you bring a lot of data and you bring a very clear-eyed perspective on these things. And I just like having you around. So thank you for joining. You can give us an outro and respond to anything you like.
Yeah. I think these kinds of discussions are always great. I love ABE because I feel like it's a pretty hang on, my chat's saying some stuff. I think it's always great to have these discussions when we have people from across the political spectrum. I like, if I misheard, I misheard. I was pretty sure I've heard it multiple times. If I didn't and I'm wrong, I am wrong. But to accuse me of lying and fabricating something just because I'm losing an argument or just to like get a one-up on you, maybe I'm just having a bad day and I'm mishearing you. But I would not intentionally do that. I kind of resent that kind of accusation. And the fact that you're going to go into the chat and compare me to Jesse fucking Smollett, who made like fake rape accusations and fucking hired people to assault him, like, fuck off. You can fuck off. I'm sorry. I'm not going to tolerate that behavior. If I'm wrong, I was wrong, right? And you have a right to be mad at me for being wrong, right? But to escalate it in that way felt unnecessary.
He's gone. Okay. I'll just have to leave that there. All right. Well,
I was like, we could check it after, but he decided to do it now. So.
Okay. All right. Well, so last but not least, the man in the center where he belongs. Wake the Beast. Holy crap! All right, Wake the Beast. I've said lots and lots of things about you in the past. I'm sure you remember all those things, right? Wake the Beast. We've had a lot of people come through on my panels after you left us. I can say that not a one replaces you. Like there is no replacement. Like there is only you, right? You are a singular force here on Twitch, and probably the world. I don't know where else, but like I disagree with lots of things you say, as Lyra said. But it's an experience being around you, and a good one, I think.
You sound good saying it.
You sound good saying it, goddammit. So Wake the Beast, thank you once again for coming back around the channel and giving this one more try. Go ahead, Wake.
Thank you very much, Prime, and for your very kind words and expressions of gratitude. I'm always in your debt when I come, because it's only here that I get to cross swords with so many talented, interesting people. I'd like to say this, that if you share my biological anatomy, You and I, regardless of our differences of opinion, are united in a single word, and that word is man. And what makes you a man is not the degree to which you are able to soothe the ears of the opposite sex into meaningless sexual liaisons. It's not even your method of approach to making income from yourself, but it's the degree to which your friends, your family, and your society at large can depend upon you. That is to say, gentlemen, that there's a heavy burden on our shoulders. We have to stand on this line between all things worth preserving and everything else, those institutions, ideas, and abstractions that even made the carving of kingdoms from chaos possible. And of course, this is not to leave women out, because in the words of James Brown, this may be a man's world, but what would it be if it were not for women and girls? Again, what would all of this be for if it were not to bring about a more perfect situation for those of us who bear the most exposure? And is that not the women and the children among us? So I'd like to say to the men on this panel who disagreed with me that in exchange for a woman's loyalty and in exchange for her willingness to bear your seed, necessitating that she look life in the face, that you do not owe her your protection and your very life in exchange. I hope that some point between now and your development into the man I hope you become, you recognize that you owe her an apology.
Okay.
I really
I
get
feel like I'm in the Garden of Eden and I'm listening to this tape. Because when you talk, I'm
Soothing,
just like, oh my
soothing,
God, it's so
smooth
poetic.
Chad
And
voice.
then when you listen to what you're saying, I'm just like, wait, what the? There's so many plot holes and things that are wrong what just happened. I need to be on another
Prime
panel
is
with
trying to
you,
wrap
Wake
up.
the Beast. It's such a joy speaking with
Lyra,
you.
I just want to say something to you, Lyra. It's very possible in this world to disagree with people without being insulting to them. You have a lot of
Did I
growing up
insult
to
you?
do.
Did I insult you? Did I actually? I didn't think I said anything insulting to you.
Oh,
Did I?
let's hope.
That's a serious question.
Let's. Well,
Like, what did I say that hurt your feelings?
let's.
I mean, if I
No,
think
no,
you
you
have
have to
bad
understand.
takes, I mean,
He's
you think I
just, he's
had
just
bad takes
frustrated
as well.
because him and I had a deal going,
Oh,
right?
boy.
Where he was going to come and he was going to do clown makeup
Okay.
at my child's birthday party.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Last
Oh
time
boy!
we were on tail
Stop.
he read this back.
Okay. So, everyone, the people who just came through, right? Wake the Beast of that incredible outro, right? That's what you missed, right? This is what you missed. Wake the Beast, like I just said, is a very unique individual. I love him or hate him, very unique individual, which we're very happy to have around here. And so, if you missed that, exclamation point YouTube in chat. Exclamation point YouTube in chat. That's where we'll have the bot of this. It has been just an experience. Follow the channel if you haven't done so already. Follow this channel so you don't miss out in the future, right? Because hopefully we'll have Wake the Beast and all these amazing, wonderful people back as well. And so you'll see amazing fresh takes. Like, oh, you missed so much. This is amazing. This is amazing. But we're gonna continue. We're not done. Okay. We are going to roll into our open walk-on panel right after this. Anyone here is welcome to join us, but if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, and your knowledge, and your fucking memes with my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do.
Don't forget the poetry.
And the poetry. Holy shit, the poetry. Holy
Forgetting
crap.
the poetry.
You guys missed the poetry. Holy shit. All right, anyway. Bye.
Poetry.